on average, just in the United States, about 220 people die every single day from an opiate overdose. By the time we finish this show, 8 to 10 people are going to die from an opiate overdose. If we get even one person, one viewer with this program that we might be able to help with some of the information that's shared on here, then it's all worth it. Hey everyone, it's Glenn Victor. Welcome to the Dare Me podcast again. Coming to you live from Sacramento, California. Man, have we been looking forward to today's show. We are going to be rocking out for real in just a little bit. We got a special guest lined up for you today. That boy Mike Woods from Cult of the Storm is going to be joining us very shortly, and we're going to do a deep dive interview with him, talk about all the things. And, of course, we also have that boy Dean Baker, who we're going to bring into the show right now, right out of the gate. Coming to us live from all the way over on the East Coast. There he is, the man, the legend, Dean Baker in Orlando, Florida. How's it going, Dean?
I'm a legend in my own mind.
Yeah, I used to say that too, man. You know, we've talked about it on this show, but Dean and I, we go back a long way. We've been working together on all kinds of projects, man, for, God, like over, 25 years or so, Dean? You know?
It's been a hell of a run.
Yeah, well, hey, I'll say it right out of the gate. Dean, you already been a rock star for this show, pardon the pun, working behind the scenes, getting all the slides and the videos and the photos and everything ready for the program today so that we can have a great show with that boy who we're going to bring in right now from Central Florida as well. Let's say hello to our old friend Mike Woods from Cult of the Storm. There he is. What's happening, Mike? Welcome to the Dare Me podcast.
Thank you very much, Glenn. I'm happy to be here. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. You know, I was just telling Dean before we went on the air that it's just so bizarre sometimes how things come together in life. You and I, as you know, have a long history. We met, God, it's over 30 years ago.
Yeah, early 90s, man.
Yeah, well, I got to Orlando at the end of 91, so we met shortly after that, and, I've done some promos for you and all, and I kind of put it out there that, as you know, our paths just never converged in a way where we were like buddies that hung out on the weekend or anything, but we always saw each other and knew each other at different events and dances and stuff like that we would go to, and we always kind of acknowledged each other, and now we reconnected on social media about a year ago, and we have this music thing in common as well. And so where I was going with that is we had talked about having you on the podcast as far back as, God, it's got to be at least like 6 months or so ago when we were messaging, and I'm just so glad that it's finally come to fruition, man. I'm really excited about having you on the show today.
Well, there is so much negative press about social media and the downsides of it. Well, this is definitely one of the upsides of it. Yeah. That somebody you knew 30 years ago pops up on your Facebook wall, and I start seeing photos and videos of Glenn at the crack of dawn at Planet Fitness and stuff like that. You're working out stuff. Then I find out you're doing a podcast.
Yeah,
sounds like this is great and having a good time, man. So yeah, I think that's going to be fantastic.
And I appreciate that, bro.
When you speak about social media and people popping in from your past, I get people, my high school, I knew everyone in my high school. It was such a small school. And I'd see somebody and it's like trying to friend me, and I'm going, dude, I didn't like you back then. You sure as hell didn't like me. So what do you think 30 years later is going to really do for this situation?
Yeah, people change, though.
Actually, I had something kind of like that happen, but in reverse. Mm-hmm. In the 80s, I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, a little town.
Right.
Even though it's the capital, it was a very small little podunk town. And if you were a male back in the early 80s, you were homophobic. That's just the way it was.
It was a different mentality back then.
Different time, it was a different mentality. And there was one boy that went to my high school who was obviously different than the rest of us by a little
Mm-hmm.
bit,
Mm-hmm.
and we were none too kind to him.
Right. No, I
Mm.
Uh,
understand.
myself included. I was nowhere near the the worst of what he had to put up with, but I was
Right.
certainly not nice.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
I
understand.
caught up with him on social media, and I was able to send him a heartfelt
Amends.
apology and amends to make
Yeah.
amends for that. And he was so gracious and appreciative, and he grew up to be just this amazing man. And it was just wonderful to have that reconnection on a very positive note. And now we've stayed friends since then. Um, so there's people from like my high school days who I wasn't even friends with back then, but
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
friends with, and I had chat with them today.
Yeah, that's interesting, Mike. Yeah, I've definitely reconnected with some old friends as well. And I'm just gonna say it, man. I'm just gonna fucking put it out there. I don't give a shit. I've reconnected with some old friends where, when you're young and then you're, teen years and 20s, hormones raging. It seems like everybody's doing everybody and all that other stuff. And I've reconnected with friends, and after we talked and kind of reconnected, I've had a buddy of mine apologize, say, "Well, Glenn, I got to make an amends, man. I always felt horrible about this over the years, man. When you were dating so and so, her and I ended up hooking up." And I said, "Oh my God, bro, I'm so glad you told me that because I did the same with your girl, and I apologize."
No
And oh
shit.
my God, it's just, I mean, again, when you're young and wild and crazy, man, hormones raging, it's like
Fucking
I ain't trying to,
hilarious, man.
and we just both laughed, and it's just this the way it is, man. But yeah, social media is a trip, and I'm glad you said it the way you did, Mike. This is one of the positive things that came out of it and is still evolving as social media grows. We just had this brand new platform come out this week called Threads,
Yep.
which is the Meta or Facebook version of Twitter. And I went ahead and,
I
and
heard they
got a
already got
profile.
sued over that too.
Yeah, yeah, they got a cease and desist immediately from Elon Musk. But I did go ahead and get a profile because if you got an Instagram profile, it's real quick and easy. I haven't done any posting yet, but I got a shit ton of people already following me because they see you're on there. Did you get on there, Dean, on Threads yet? Just out of
No, but I
curiosity.
saw a meme just the other day, and somebody else said another podcast talked about it. But I saw a meme about it took Netflix 3.5 years to get 1 million subscribers, and then it goes, and it took Facebook this much long, and then it took this much long, and it took Threads like 3 hours to
Three
get 1 million
hours, yeah,
subscribers, something like that. It was just mind blowing as to how
yeah,
fast things. Of course, it could take 3 hours for it to fall apart.
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
you know
I mean
what?
that's the way it is.
It's
They also
true.
had a huge springboard starting them off.
Yeah,
Being
yeah. Of
part of the
course,
meta
yep,
universe or the
yeah.
metaverse, whatever the hell they're calling that.
But
Yeah,
Dean, you
that's
made a good point, bro. I mean to interrupt you there, but it grows and changes, man. I mean, I'm no stranger to social media myself. I go back to I remember the MySpace days, man. I tell you what, I miss MySpace, man. I had a
I think
cool
it's
ass
still there.
page with the jukebox where the songs start playing and all the bling and shit. But
I think it's
then
still there.
MySpace, man, it just like crashed and burned because it got filled with all them viruses of people, downloading all those different backgrounds and shit. So, I've heard people say from time to time, man, if Facebook don't stop with all the ads and all that shit, they could end up going the way of MySpace. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen,
Well,
but
being
things
that
do
you're
change.
saying, and I haven't really done the research on Threads, but if it's tied to a metaverse, my initial reaction to that would be it's going to fail because there's no one metaverse. There's like
Yeah.
15 metaverses. Facebook has its own metaverse.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
one called Decentraland. And there's probably another 20 or 30 of them out there. So it's real estate, and people think, oh, come to our metaverse. So
Yep.
you're gonna have to really buy into it. It's kind of like VHS and Betamax.
Yeah.
Somebody
Yeah.
lost in that route,
Yeah. Ain't
and
that the truth?
and with the metaverse, it's not gonna happen just because they make it so expensive. You want to buy real estate, you can buy your house in the metaverse, or you can
Right.
buy
Right.
your address in the metaverse, and they're charging you ungodly amounts of money to do this. So
Yeah.
it's
I
kind of
hear
like
you, bro.
those pics that people are doing
Yeah,
now
yeah,
tied to Bitcoin and
yeah. I
crap
know
like
what you're
that.
talking about. Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
forget the name of them,
it's
but I
not.
looked into that. But I'm not buying some digital
It's
photograph, and
flash.
I'm
Yes,
not doing that. Well,
I'm not
hey,
going to
Dean.
spend 10 grand on a JPEG, just because
Yeah,
Snoop
that's
Dogg
yeah,
published it.
yeah.
You know,
Hey, I just want to say hi. I saw we were up to like 6 people viewing, and we saw
Gee,
we got
Phil
some
Bird.
people listening, and Phil is in the chat room saying
Phil.
share the show. So Phil, we appreciate you joining in the chat room, and hey, we're sharing it, bro. We're getting it out there. In fact, I was telling Mike. I
That's
copied
Phil.
and pasted a link over there on my Facebook. So anybody else who might like to share the show, you can go to my page, hit share, and send it wherever you want.
Thank
So
you,
yeah,
Phil.
we appreciate all y'all chiming in. What we're going to do right now, though, is go into, as I mentioned on the front end, what the purpose of this show is. How having a guy like Mike on today ties into this whole thing, and this whole name. Dare me. Where did that come from, and all? So, Mike, if you would just bear with us for a few minutes here while I recap the purpose of the show, and then we're going to jump into that deep dive interview with you. And I'm really looking forward to talking about all the things we got. On the list that we're going to go over. So,
Yeah, man, go
for
ahead and
any
do your thing. I'm going to drink my coffee.
yeah, there you go. And I dig that mug you got too there, by the way, bro. Keep calm and listen to metal. So there you go, bro. Well, anyways, so yes, if you are tuning in to the Dare Me podcast for the very first time, we just always like to recap the purpose of the show. Now, we're into episode 17. This is the 17th edition of this show, which I still just kind of blows my mind. I can't believe we've been doing it that long. But we do have listeners and viewers who jump aboard for the very first time, and we catch a lot of people. We're live on a few different Facebook channels, YouTube channels, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the things, and people will sometimes just see we're live streaming and jump on like, what the hell is this all about? So I always like to recap the show, and of course, people come across the recorded version. That's where we get most of our views and listeners. Hundreds of people that we hear from about this show. Mentioned many times, we get viewers and listeners from overseas in the UK, all over Canada, South America. So, not only are we across the United States, but literally other parts of the world. And one of the main reasons that I think we get people is because we use a lot of different hashtags about what the show is all about, which I've been dancing all around, and now I'm going to kind of jump right into. It's really about helping people get through an addiction. For me, this time around, at least, it was specifically opiates. I started off with opiate pain medication, started taking them damn pain pills and all that other stuff, and at the end of the road, I was snorting fucking heroin, y'all, because I'd get dope sick, and I couldn't get the good pills, as they say, and so, I had that plug, had the dope man saying, well, hey, Glenn, we don't have what you're looking for right now, but we got some heroin at least to hold you over while you're sick until we can get some of the stuff you want. Never in a million years would I ever thought that would have been me, but that's what it came to, and I should have known better to even start with them damn pills. I have a long history with addiction that goes back to when I was a younger man. I started partying, as a lot of people I know, as a young kid, teenager, smoking weed and all that other shit. And it turned into a daily thing with me until I finally got clean, just shy of 25 years old, and walked into my first 12-step meeting at the time. And, it took me a little while till I got it. But eventually I did stay clean for a long time, almost 17 years, y'all. I stayed clean for 16 years, 9 months, got very active in, the recovery meetings, things to that nature, NAAA, fucking A, whatever you want to call it. And then I had a horrible relapse. Lasted about 5 years. That relapse was on the booze and smoking dope and shit like that. And I ended up back in a fucking rehab again, which actually was a good trip for me because when I got out of there, I stayed clean and sober again for 6 years. And then that's when I got hooked on the pills, y'all. Not to make excuses, but I broke my ankle. and I went into surgery, and they put 3 pins in my ankle, and actually was back in surgery a month later to have a couple of them taken out. But when I got out of the surgery, if you haven't figured out where I'm going with this yet, they tossed me a bottle of Vicodins, as I often say, on the way out the door, and I started taking them. And I knew better. I had no business doing no narcs with my long history of addiction, but I did anyways, and I got hooked, like a lot of people do, like a lot of people I know have. Happens to the best. And we've talked about it a lot on this show. And if you go back and watch previous episodes, you'll hear pretty much my whole story. We kind of piece it together throughout different shows. I tell war stories. There's more to come, that's for damn sure. But to summarize, while I was going through that opiate addiction, which was a 9-year run, y'all, at the end of it, I was looking for answers, looking for information on how to kick, because I didn't want to go back into treatment. I just didn't want to fucking go back into a rehab. So I tried like hell to do it on my own. And one of the ways I tried doing that was looking for information online. I was Googling how to get through opiate withdrawals, YouTube, and watching videos, all that kind of stuff. And I came across some good information that we've shared on this show many times. There's some good stuff out there, but there ain't nothing like what we're doing with this show. And so that was where this show was pretty much born. I just had this idea, man, if I could ever fucking get clean again, which I had almost given up on, I think I'd like to do a podcast and see if we might be able to help people. So, as we say in the intro to the show, and I say it a lot on this program, if we can help even one person with the information we share on this program, then it's all worth it. Because it takes balls, to put yourself out there the way I have. It's like I have no reservations about it now. Like I said, we're freaking 17 episodes into this program. But when we first started, yeah, I was a little self-conscious about it, especially coming from, the business world, corporate world, kind of had a kind of high-profile media reputation in and around Central Florida and Detroit. I worked in radio and television for years, so people kind of knew who I was and stuff. And so for me to put myself out there, it took some balls, quite frankly. But, when I really had time to think about it, I thought to myself, man, I have no right keeping to myself what I went through and somehow was miraculously able to survive if it can help even one person. Because based on the latest statistics, we don't make these numbers up, y'all. These are bona fide government statistics from all the research they do, that by the time we finish this program, and it'll be a couple hours, 8 to 10 people are going to die just from an opiate overdose here in the United States. That don't include no other drugs or whatever, opiate overdose. 8 to 10 people in just a couple hours here in the United States. And this shit's worldwide, too, So, like I said, y'all, it's kind of, we're going to talk with Mike here in a little bit about reinventing yourself and transformation and shit. And that's kind of what I've done, in coming out, as they say. Because certainly I've come out, with my addiction, putting it all out there. So that's the purpose of the program. If you've come across this show, you're struggling with addiction, you're maybe going through withdrawals right now, looking for information on how to get through that like I was, hang with us, man. Stick with us on this show. At the very least, we'll help you kill a couple hours while you're kicking, because I get it. The clock moves at a snail's pace when you're trying to get through withdrawals. And, certainly at the very least, hopefully we can be entertaining for you and maybe give you some input and ideas on how to get through that. And that transitions me into the name Dare Me. Like, where the hell did that come from? And then we have all these hashtags of what those letters in the Dare Me name mean. It all kind of came together by happenstance. Didn't really plan it this way. I thought about calling this show Raw or Real and Raw, but those names are used to death for stuff like this. And so this came up with the idea of, dare me. Yeah, fucking dare me to do this show. Dare me to put myself out there like this and talk about this, and that's where the name really kind of was born. And then we came up with these hashtags of all the letters that what do those stand for. So we came up with drugs, addiction, recovery, enlightenment, music, and exercise. And there they are. Dean, thanks for bringing them up. And it all just kind of evolved on its own, so to speak. And these are all my favorite topics now. And so we've focused in on each one of those topics on this program at different times. And certainly we've already talked about drugs, addiction, and recovery a little bit. And we are going to take a deep dive into music today with that boy, Mike Woods, who I'm so happy to have on the show, and talk about how music literally not only helped transform and help save my life, but certainly is doing the same thing for a lot of other people. So, Mike, that's the recap of the show. Appreciate you, sticking with us. But it's important, I think, to recap that for people who maybe come across this show for the first time. So, thanks again for indulging me as I did that. So, with all that said, y'all, we've got some stuff coming up later in the show. We'll touch on all the latest news we come across in the opioid crisis. We monitor that every week. That'll be coming up. We're going to talk about some current events, some recovery events coming up. Got some shout outs coming up, some really cool ones we're going to talk about later. Right now, though, we want to jump right into that interview with Mike. And so, with all that said, Mike, I'll put it out there that and of course, we talked about a lot of this stuff prior to today's show, just kind of preparing and all, that you and I met in the recovery community when I first moved to Orlando, as I mentioned, back in late 91, and then just kind of start meeting all kinds of people in 92. So we go back a long way. And at that time, man, I didn't really know that you were into music. When I started meeting people, and I know you kind of laughed when I told you this, I was meeting different people. It was like, and I remember meeting you and that boy Jason and Adam and some of them other guys, and it was like, oh man, that's the cool kids group. I want to get to know them guys, And you guys were always just so nice to me when I DJ, because I met you guys at them Young and Free dances. I used to DJ. I did them dances, man, for every month for a few years. And so, our friendship kind of started as a result of music when you really think about it.
Well,
So
I
with all
remember
that,
those dances very clearly. They were they were a lot of fun, and
yeah,
we were young. We were in our 20s,
yep,
and
yep.
shockingly, amazingly, and wonderfully, there are a lot of really attractive young women there.
Oh, yeah. Talk about hormones raging there. We talked about earlier on this program, there were, well, I'll just say a lot of stories that came out of those young and free dances. And, I was thinking about it earlier today. People used to joke around because not me personally, but the committee charged people $5 to get in them things to help cover the expenses. And everybody used to call it young and free. It's young and $5, And so, but anyways, with all that said, Mike, let me ask you this. I've got a list of questions here and an outline. When and how did you start in music and your journey with all of that? Tell us a little bit about the history there, if you would.
Um, I picked up a guitar at age 15.
Okay.
Um, and the funny thing about it was that much like other members of my family, I any type of artwork I ever tried, I was just automatically good at. Um, I had tried, drawing, painting, writing, all sorts of stuff. But then I went and tried music, started taking guitar lessons, found out that number one, I was completely tone deaf. And number two, I had the sense of timing of microwave popcorn. So I chose for some reason to stick with the one art form that I completely had no natural talent for.
Right,
And
right. Yeah.
but that's what stuck. And I was a pretty nerdy kid, so I spent, I had more than ample time on my hands to uh, sit there in the bedroom playing that shitty fucking guitar until something started to come out that was worth listening to.
Right, right.
Uh,
Well,
joined some bands in high school,
uh-huh.
and started a band with one of my best friends, and we started playing some school functions. And before we were even out of high school, we started playing in some places that we weren't legally old enough to be in.
Right, I
Um,
know what you mean. Yeah.
and we got to a point with the band where we needed a new drummer, and we were, I think, seniors in high school by this point, and there was this freshman kid who, I mean, he looked even younger than that. I've got pictures of him that I just won't even show, but we hired on this 15-year-old little kid drummer who comes in with this nice Tama drum set and just blew us the fuck away.
Right,
And his
right.
name was Will Hunt.
Yeah, we're going to show a picture of you and Will in a minute. And if that name sounds familiar to people, I don't mean to interrupt you, Mike, but yeah, he's who you're thinking he is, a drummer for Evanescence, man. How cool is that?
So yeah, he's been in a whole lot of bands, and he's had one hell of a career, and
Yeah.
it's cool to have some history with somebody like that. Of course, he's out traveling the world playing rock star, so
Yeah.
he's not, it's not exactly the kind of relationship where I talk to him very often.
Well, we're
So
going
it's
to
not like I'm
show.
buddy buddy with him or anything like that.
Yeah, well, we want to hear more about that, but hey, I thought I should interject right now. We brought this graphic up on the screen, man, which is so freaking cool. I
Thank you.
love your artwork for Cult of the Storm, which is. Tell us a little bit about Cult of the Storm, Mike. It was the name of the music you're doing, so to speak.
Yes. Well, the I guess the first thing that happened that is germane to the flow of the story is I had actually gotten out of the music industry. I'd
Mm-hmm.
stopped playing music altogether in the 90s, um, and wandered around aimlessly for a few years. In fact, when I met you, I was still in that very aimless time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And by the end of the decade, I had finally fully reinvented myself and started a company and had a career in internet marketing that
Mm-hmm.
in a business that I owned that took off pretty well and lasted for 20 years.
Right, right. We're gonna
And
jump into that in a little bit, but yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I didn't even pick up a guitar because uh, before I walked away from playing music, it was such an integral part of my personal identity
Mm-hmm.
that to 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 be able to walk away from it, I had to try to sever that tie completely, or so I thought.
Well, if I may,
Um,
Mike, I don't mean to interrupt you, bro, but if you could tell us a little bit about, when did you start getting paid for music and, touring like as a pro prior to Cult of the Storm? I think our listeners and viewers would be curious to hear a little bit more about that.
well, like I said, some of the first gigs that we got that where somebody actually handed us cash American money.
Yeah, yeah, right,
That was happening before we even got out of high school. I mean, it was only a
right.
couple bucks, but then immediately after high school, we were playing little tiny clubs around Tallahassee. That's all that was there, um, but having a great time, having a fantastic time,
Right.
um, and we had all the rock star dreams and everything, but you know, things go the way they go. Um, and that band kind of fizzled out. And Will went and joined um, a an up and coming band at the time.
Okay.
And I decided to try to go to college just because I had no idea what the fuck else to do. And at the time, that's just what you
Okay.
did.
Yeah, I
You get
got
out of high
you.
school, you go to college, you get a degree, and you get shitty job and go fucking live in a cubicle or whatever people do. I don't even know because I never
Mm-hmm.
actually did it. I went to college for about a year and I got a call from another high school friend
To go
who was
back on tour, right?
he was a guitar player in a touring band by this
Mm-hmm.
point,
Mm-hmm.
and their bass player uh, was having to go back home to England. And in the middle of a tour, um, I got flown out to meet them, and they were they were playing back then. We were playing really large clubs. They don't really exist like this anymore. I mean, the
Right.
closest thing is like the Hard Rock
Okay.
Cafe
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But these clubs were actually considerably larger than that, and the stages were 3, 4, 500 square foot stages. I mean, it was
Right.
just by today's standards, it was completely batshit crazy that completely unknown bands would take to stages and clubs that large, but that was the norm.
Yep.
Um, and I had gotten a call from this friend to go and join his band on the road, and um, my decision to drop out of college took about a second and a half because I school was never really for me. Um, and went out on the road with this band and did a lot of the rock star type stuff that you read about.
Yep.
Um, but like anything, there were problems arising um, within the band. You know,
There's
I've
always some shit in the game, artistic differences, and too
yeah,
much partying, and
mostly it was too
whatever.
much partying by the other members of the band that was the problem for me.
Right.
In fact, one night when this same guitar player, whom by the way was actually a childhood friend of mine, I had been friends with since we were 6 years old.
Wow.
Um, but he had a he had a penchant for tequila, and when he
Yep.
would get on that stuff, he would start physically horsing around, and he was messing with me, and I kept wanting him to stop. I wound up knocking him out and
Oh wow.
leaving him in the middle of the road in downtown Fort Lauderdale.
Wow.
And I was walking, and I started just walking away, left him in the road, and the sound man was with me, and he just walked away with me, and all he ever said was, "Well, you warned him," you
That
know.
was that's a true rock and roll story right there.
But
Yeah.
then, uh, the tensions in the band just rose from there. But then there was one day
Right.
I was on the bus and we're traveling between towns, and the drummer and guitar player are all the way in the back of the bus in this open area, and they had the biggest bag of weed I had ever seen or have ever seen in my
Okay.
life. It was it was unreasonable.
Okay.
And they were just smoking it up, and I didn't do any drugs at all, didn't drink nothing,
Right.
and but it crossed my mind as I'm laying there in my bunk. It
Mm-hmm.
crossed my mind, if for some stupid reason we get pulled over for a tail light being out,
Mm-hmm.
the cop is immediately, he didn't even need to have a sense of smell. The smoke's just billowing out of the fucking bus. I said,
Right.
and that at that point, we're all going to jail.
Right. Right.
And with the
So a little
amount of
wake up
weed
call.
they had, the charges could have been substantial.
Sure.
And I realized um, that was not a sustainable situation, nor was it safe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, nor was it what I ever wanted when I started playing music.
Right.
Um, you know, I mean, there was always the allure of the that rock star lifestyle, but
Right.
the music itself got a hold of me early, and
Mm-hmm.
um, I I had no interest in the drugs or uh, staying out all night partying.
Well, you know what, Mike? Not to interrupt you, bro, but yeah, I've heard this similar explanation from a lot of different artists. Is there is that difference between having a passion for the music and the lifestyle, and not everybody's always in it for the same reasons. And so, totally get where you're coming from. There's this little bit of a conflicting thing going on there, you know. So if I'm hearing you correctly, bro, you ended up walking away from that and moving on to new stuff after touring with them guys, correct?
Yes, I did. I started a business doing website design, internet marketing, graphics design. I had actually done a short stint at a commercial art school,
Mm-hmm.
hence the reason why I do all the artwork for the music stuff. Um, well, not just because of that, but because I'm at the moment a one man band, one man operation completely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing everything, artwork, video, music, all of it.
Right.
Um, and it's fun. It's interesting. I'm learning a lot,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of cool emerging technologies. Um, but when I was just around 31, I think it was, I met a woman and got married, and
Right.
um, we got married. We bought a house, and we had a kid in that order.
Yeah.
Um, and when my son was about 7 years old, uh, he said a very simple phrase to me that turned out to be like a nuclear blast.
Okay.
He said, "Daddy, I want to play guitar." And
Wow. Right. Right.
so later, like the next day, we were at a local little music store, and I was buying him his first guitar. And while I was there was this bass guitar hanging on the wall at this amazing price, and I was like, "Damn, that's incredible. Maybe I should get back into playing a little bit." So I bought that bass, took it home, and like a week later, it's a full home studio and full PA ready for a road show. Yeah.
Well, with that said, Mike, let me ask you this, bro. Going back to the actual music, because this was one of those questions you and I talked about, is how did grunge music, which had really hit the scene right around that time when I met you, man, and groups like Nirvana influence you? Because I've been promoting this program as rocker Mike Woods, and and you are, bro. You're a fucking rocker, So how did that whole scene and that era influence where you're at with music now, bro?
Have you ever had food poisoning?
I have actually. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it affected me. Um,
Okay.
I severely disliked the grunge music. Um, Half of it, half of the music I actually liked okay, but it was a lot of it was really more of a fashion show. But when it really gained its dominance over the market, um, I realized I had a choice.
Hmm.
I could play grunge, which would require me to go out and buy a collection of flannel shirts and cut off jean shorts and combat boots. And
Right.
then I
Right.
would be playing music to shoot heroin by.
Right.
'Cause
Right.
that's
Right.
what grunge music sounded like to me.
Well,
Uh,
Mike, let me if I may, because I want to hear the rest of that story, but I got to interject something, bro. So, like, when I was doing those young and free dances, when I first met you in like 92, 93, 94, but really when I first got to town, you got to remember, I was like 29, 30 years old and just moved to Orlando from fucking Detroit, okay? So, I'm a guy, I was a rocker, Led Zeppelin, Stones, Pink Floyd, Who, all that kind of shit. But I also was a Motown guy. And I had worked in bars and clubs playing dance music already for several years. And so I'm playing all this top 40 shit just to get people out on the dance floor. And that's when a lot of the people that used to come to them dances started trying to talk me into playing a lot of this grunge music. And I'm like, dude, it's not that I don't like that music. I love that shit, but I got to get people on the fucking dance floor. And so there's that one boy, I forget his name, man. He talked me into playing Give It Away by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And people were out there body slamming and they almost formed like a mosh pit. in front of the stage because if you remember, man, we
I
used to
think I
get like
remember that.
yeah, we used to get a few hundred people at them dances. I mean, these dances were huge, y'all. They were like, NAAA, fucking A recovery dance. People came from all over. There wasn't no boundaries. I mean, there were people that used to drive that thing from Melbourne all the time and
Yeah.
shit. And man, once I seen that, I was all in, man. I started playing like "Smells Like Teen Spirit" and Chili Pepper, all kinds of shit. It was like, hey, my feeling was if people are dancing, I'll play whatever fuck you want to hear. So anyway, I just thought I'd interject that because I remember that time distinctly. That wow, man, this new music. When you first listen to it, you wouldn't think of it as any kind of music people would dance to, but of course, at them dances, people would dance to about any fucking thing you
Yeah.
put on because they
They
were
were there
there
to
to
have a
have
good
fun.
time, and nothing was
Yeah.
going to stop them.
Yep, yep. But it is interesting to hear, how that music influenced you in your musical direction, and thought it interesting to hear that you weren't a big fan at first, but then you kind of jumped on board, if I'm hearing you correctly.
Well,
Kind of like with me.
there were some of the bands that to me, like Alice in Chains, uh, they did a lot of those songs that I call music to shoot heroin by,
Hmm.
but they also had some bangers and some
Yeah.
real rockers that I absolutely adored, and still do to this day.
Yeah.
Um, the As far as influencing my musical direction, I think that happened retroactively.
Okay.
Um, because I was, you know, I had walked away from the music industry, and
And why was that? Was it kind of based on what you told us, the story you told us about on the tour bus and conflict within the band? Is that the
yeah,
main reason you walked away?
yeah, that and the stylistic thing that was just unappealing to me. Um, but at that time, back in those days, at least
Hmm.
with you know uh, the circles I was playing in, um, every damn near everybody I met was a complete asshole. Um, I remember
Yeah.
we didn't stay in one place for very long, but we did kind of an extended stint in South Florida. I remember meeting Marilyn Manson,
Right.
and his band before anybody knew who the fuck they were.
Right.
Um,
Right.
he already thought he was a god. Um,
Right.
I
Right.
don't even
Right.
remember any of the other band members. I just remember that guy, and I really, really, really didn't like him.
Yeah. A
Um,
lot of egos in the music business. That's for
yeah,
sure.
but
Yeah.
now I have to say though, I have a few of his albums now, and I like some of the stuff he's done. I just wouldn't want to be around him personally. But
That's interesting though, because I've seen different interviews with the dude on like late night talk shows, and he actually seems like pretty mellow, cool guy. Maybe he was just at a bad time in his your journey
who
into
knows? Who knows?
that.
But it with people that weren't famous. I mean, we were uh, every guitar player was trying to play faster than every other guitar player,
Right.
um, and everybody was trying to show off, and it was all a competition, and it didn't need to be.
Hmm.
But you would sometimes we'd play shows, and the first three rows, because our guitar player was, you know, he played faster than anybody I had ever heard. Uh,
Hmm.
it was pretty sick. He was an incredible guitar player. But sometimes we'd play these shows, and the first three rows would be all dudes just watching with their arms crossed.
Right. Right. Like they're
Just
badass.
watching
Yeah. Yeah.
watching our guitar player, fly around the fretboard.
Yep.
But after the show, if you met any of the musicians, they always had an attitude, you
Hmm.
know. And when I started to get back into it, I wasn't interested in getting back into it in any serious capacity beyond a mild hobby. Um, and then I met some people who, were successful in the industry and doing well with their music careers. And they were all some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life.
Right. Right.
Um, and I, I realized that the landscape had changed, uh, had done kind of a 180. And
Hmm. Hmm.
musicians were were supportive of each other. Uh, they were having a good time together. They were friends away from the stage,
Hmm.
and they weren't sitting around getting fucked up all the time.
Right,
You
right,
know, and I thought, if this is what it's like now, I could get back into it and actually have a good time.
right.
Actually, enjoy myself and not be looking over my shoulder all the fucking time.
Well, so Mike, let me ask you this, bro, because I kind of I know personally, from our conversations, how your journey transpired to a certain extent. So let me, if I may, kind of recap. Okay, so you were out touring with them, you had some challenges, you decided to back out of the music business, you opened the internet business, and then you met your wife. You talked a little bit about that. So I think that's interesting to talk about. And like I said, we've talked about this ahead of time, so I'm not like getting in your business, but I think our viewers and listeners would be interested to hear. How did you meet your wife, and how did things transpire in your journey from there?
I didn't even tell you this story, but yeah, that's a good one. Um, so my wife and I are both pagan, um, like Wiccan.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
uh,
Mm-hmm.
not quite Wiccan, but close enough. And we were going to these large pagan gatherings and events, and it was there was quite a strong presence in the Orlando area
Right.
back then, and I remember I had seen the woman that was to become my wife 7 months before I ever met her, and she was wearing this full length green silk dress that
Right.
hugged her body perfectly. And I don't know if you remember the movie with um, the cartoons and live action with Jessica Rabbit.
Yes. Yes.
She looked exactly like Jessica Rabbit.
Okay.
So the red hair and the amazing, just almost comic book like curves. And I was about to go up and try to talk to her, and one of my friends said, "Leave her alone. She is not ready for anything. You will get shot down immediately." So I left her alone. And about 7 months later, at another pagan gathering, I see her again, and she's looking every bit as sexy and just the kind of thing that makes your eyes pop out like a cartoon. And they had set up a kissing booth to raise a little bit of money where she would sell they were selling raffle tickets, and whoever won the raffle would win a kiss. And she was selling the tickets and manning the booth, so everyone there assumed that she's the one they would get to kiss. So I bought like 5 raffle tickets and I won. And so I get up there and I think I'm about to kiss this amazingly gorgeous, sexy woman. And it actually turned out to be a good friend of mine named Alan, who was a reporter with Clear Channel.
Okay.
Um, and he had a full beard and everything. And he just grabbed me and kissed me right on my mouth. And that was the
Oh
prize I won
Lord.
in this raffle. But then the woman that was to become my wife looked at me and she said, "Don't worry, there's a consolation prize." And she stuck her tongue in my mouth.
Oh wow.
So,
Surprise, surprise, right?
surprise, surprise. So we really hit it off, uh,
Yeah, yeah, right.
really, really quickly. And we dated for about a year,
This is another cool rock and roll story, bro.
and we dated for about a year, moved in, got married, had a kid.
And she stayed
And
home to raise your son, then,
yeah,
right?
we had
Is
a
that?
discussion about that when
Hmm.
she first got pregnant. That um, I thought it would be a great thing if that we had this rare opportunity that most people will never get
Hmm.
these
Hmm.
days, and that opportunity was that both parents could be home with our son for the first few years of his life.
Hmm.
Because I was running a successful business, and um, my wife decided, okay, I'll take the first 5 years off. Um, I'll take 5 years off and I'll stay here and I'll work for your business. and we'll be home with our kid all the time. Well, that 5 turned into 7 years,
Right.
and it was incredible, and it worked amazingly well. When she started working with my business, the profits doubled.
Wow.
You know, so yeah, I mean, life was great. We were doing wonderfully. Um,
But then, if I may interject, just kind of following along with this outline you and I put together before we started,
mhm.
some troubles began. So this is kind of, this has been really fun hearing, how your journey transpired from a very young man, Mike, and like even when we met and, you playing rock and roll with Will Hunt and, going on tour and opening your business, meeting your wife, your family, and that's awesome, man. I just love hearing stories like that, and that's a cool journey. And let's face it, we all have shit in the game in our lives and troubles come. And that's kind of the point we've reached in our conversation where some
Yeah,
troubles began for you with surgeries and things and you having to really dig deep, if I can say it that way, to,
yeah.
as you've said, reinvent and transform yourself. So if you would, share with us a little bit about what happened then, man.
Yeah, that was pretty early on, actually. My son was only 1.5, 2 years old. He was a toddler at the time. Um, and I came down with pneumonia. Um, and it got really bad, frighteningly fast. And so we went to the hospital in the middle of the night. And it within a couple of days, we discovered that I had developed a MRSA infection inside my lung, which had
Wow.
apparently never happened in history before.
Mm,
MRSA is a drug resistant bacteria. Um,
right.
it's extremely hard to treat and it's lethal. And but prior to this, it had only been, I guess, seen on people's skin.
Mm,
I had it in my lung, inside
wow.
my lung, and I was in the hospital for over a month,
Wow.
um, and had the most intense surgery that the human body can endure.
Wow.
They damn near cut me in half.
Mm,
To get to the problem, which was significant and worse than they even thought it was going to be. But I mean,
mm-hmm.
I have a 2.5 foot scar wrapping around my body from
Wow.
that. Um, and after getting out of the hospital, it took another full year to recover.
Mm,
And when you've basically been disassembled and put
yeah.
back together again,
Mm,
pain management is
mm,
is extremely important. And I don't
yeah.
think that pain management gets the respect that it needs. I don't think it's taken seriously enough.
No, I get it.
But at that level of surgery, of course, it was there was no getting around it. So they had me on the heaviest stuff that they could possibly give me,
Mm-hmm.
two different opiates at the same time, and
Right.
uh, luckily with some foresight, because when I was a teenager, I had gotten hooked on opiates myself,
Right.
and at 18 years old, I was overdosing on those things every time I took them
Mm-hmm.
at 18. So I got clean at 18 because it was either that or die.
Right. Right.
So here I am going into the hospital, and I've been in the hospital for a month, and I've been on this really fucking heavy dope the whole time.
But
Uh,
can I don't, I definitely want to hear your story, but if I may interject, just because I think our viewers and listeners would be curious, and certainly I'm curious even because, I've shared, as you heard me talk about on this show, how, I went 16 years, 9 months clean, had that relapse for 5, stayed clean for 6 again when I started on the opiate pain medication when I broke my ankle. So where I'm going with that is you said you got clean at 18. And again, we all just got today. Let's face it. I am curious to know though, how long did you go between getting clean at 18 and being faced with the decision of using opiate pain medication? How long was it?
somewhere between 13 and 15 years.
Right, right. So yeah,
Um,
man. Yeah, that whole pain
after
management
that
thing, man.
worked
It's
out.
a deep topic. Yep, yep.
Well, what I had the foresight to do
Mm-hmm.
was, luckily my wife was there to help me communicate because I
Sure.
was pretty out of my fucking mind. But I was lucid enough to come up with the idea that hey, we need to talk to the surgeon because he's the one prescribing this stuff. And the surgeon, to his credit, sat down with me with a pad of paper and a pen, and he wrote down a detailed list that was a plan for how to step down off of these painkillers and get off of them with minimal discomfort. Um,
Withdrawals. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and now minimal discomfort from opiate withdrawals is still, I got to tell you, it's still a fucking nightmare.
Believe me,
Um,
worst thing I ever been through in my life, bro.
I can tell you that even with the step down process, it was really fucking hard. And I know what it feels like to have spiders crawling all over your body.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was one of the sensations I had
Mm-hmm.
during that time. But I, I, I hated it. I
Mm.
remember hating
Yes.
taking the drugs.
Mm.
And
God, bro.
you mentioned my friends Jason and Adam
Yeah.
earlier. Adam actually
Old
came
friends. Hey
and
guys, if you
stayed with
see
us.
this. Yeah.
He came and stayed with us for a while to help make sure that I took the medication and also help make sure that I did what I was supposed to do and didn't hurt myself and all that kind of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that was enormously helpful. But I
Yep.
do remember truly hating the sensation of those opiates. It
Right.
had completely turned. Um, there was no enjoyable high. Um,
Right.
I had come to really enjoy being clear headed. I had come
Mm.
to really enjoy my intellect.
Wow,
Um,
bro. I can
and
relate, man.
those fucking heavy ass opiates, they shave 20 IQ points right off the top.
Mm.
I
Mm.
mean, they turned me into a fucking idiot, and it was horrible.
You know,
Um,
bro, I got to interject, Mike. I remember this even, my first relapse going through treatment, bro, and they talked about how for those of us that have been down that road, there is, and some might disagree with this statement. I'm just going to say is what I was taught. For those of us that know who've been down that road, there is no mental pain like relapse. Now, I'm not necessarily saying your journey was relapse, or some might
yeah,
even say mine
that was
was,
not.
you
That was
know,
absolutely not.
yeah,
I
yeah,
still
yeah.
considered myself clean after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And same thing with when I broke my ankle. It didn't start off as a relapse. I was legit taking pain medication for a condition that certainly warranted it, that was prescribed.
Yeah,
Uh, when the relapse, I guess you might say, started is when they did, like you called it, the wean down. But I kept fucking going, and then I started getting it from off the streets and the dope man, and it snowballed out of control. So, where exactly did that start? But the thing of it is, man, when you have a medical condition, that's why I was saying, man, that whole pain management thing, ooh, that's a deep topic, man.
yeah,
But the thing is, I totally get what you're saying. Once you introduce that shit back into your body, after you've had long term clean time, as we'll say, man, it's a whole different mindset then. That's all I kind of, I guess, was getting at. I
yeah.
didn't
Well,
mean
I
to
mean, I had
interrupt your
heard
story,
people
but
talk
yeah.
about like relapsing, of course,
Hmm.
um, and talking about having a bloodstream full of drugs and a
Yeah,
head
yeah.
full of recovery,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and they don't mix.
No, as the old saying goes, I'd rather be in a meeting thinking about being at the dope house than being at the dope house thinking about being at a meeting. I've been to both places,
Yeah.
no
So
fun.
I haven't experienced that, uh,
Hmm.
but I had heard countless stories
Hmm.
exactly like yours,
Mm, mm.
exactly
Yeah, yeah.
like yours.
Right.
For people that went into for some surgery, some medical procedure, got prescribed some opiates,
Yep.
and down the fucking drain they fucking went.
Yeah.
And it happened so much that when it, when I found myself in the hospital, and they're pumping me full of all this dope, um, I was remembering all of those stories that are just like yours. And I'm
Right.
I'm
Right.
saying this to really press the point home how important it is for you to share that and to talk about it and to dare to talk
Yeah.
about it.
Well, thank you for saying that, Mike. I
I think
appreciate
it's
that, bro.
it's crucial, and it was because of people like you telling stories exactly like yours
Hmm.
that when I was in the hospital with that, I had the idea to get with the surgeon and create a step down plan
Yep.
because I was still on that stuff for another 8 months after that.
Right. Wow.
I was walking with a cane. Well, for the first couple months, I couldn't even walk.
Mm.
Um, I mean, it
Mm.
was it was hardcore. The amazing thing was that when it was all over with, after a little over a year later after the surgery, I recovered more than 100%
Right.
somehow, even
How do
with
you
one of
do
my
that?
lungs missing. Um,
Right. Right. Right.
and I think a lot of that was due to the fact that before the surgery, I was like a 2.5 pack a day smoker,
I
and
was going to ask you, did they ever really determine like how you got that condition? Did they attribute it to smoking? Because as you mentioned, it is an unusual condition to have, right?
yeah, it was not due to smoking at all. Um, the uh, they did say that if I wasn't a smoker, my chances of getting pneumonia that severe would have been less, but it was not the smoking that caused it. And what put MRSA in my lung was a nurse.
A nurse.
Yeah, because they had to run tubes down my throat because I was, not conscious for a long time. And somebody didn't clean one of those fucking tubes properly.
Wow. No
And what
shit.
what was really crazy is literally the day I got home from the hospital, I was going to call an attorney.
Yeah, I was
And
thinking.
I
John
was watching
Morgan.
the news. I was
Right.
watching the news, and two representatives from the hospital I had just left the day before were on there talking about, we don't know what it is. There's this strange new strain of MRSA that can get inside of people now. It
Wow.
was all CYA, cover your ass. It was all
Yeah.
bullshit.
Right,
But
right.
because they had gotten out ahead of it, I
Hmm.
didn't really have a case, nor was I in really any shape to go through anything like a legal battle. Uh,
Right, right.
but that was human error that almost killed me there. Uh,
Right. Well,
and
after that, Mike, if I can ask, you had some other challenges with surgeries and things. And then, if I may, not to jump too far ahead, I think everyone, would be curious to hear how did you end up getting back involved in music again after going through them challenges, and how did that help you with, as we've said, reinventing and transforming yourself into where you're at now?
well, after the lung surgery, like I said, I was basically couch surfing for a year.
Yeah.
Um, and I hadn't even really listened to any music other than country and bluegrass for years.
Right.
Um, and I'm sitting on the couch, and Judas Priest comes on VH1, and
Right. Right.
they've just gotten back together, and they're putting together this whole new
You
album and
got
tour
another
and everything.
thing coming. Dun,
And
dun,
yeah, I'm
dun.
watching I'm watching this, and I'm like getting reinvigorated, and it it energized me,
Yeah.
and it was part of my healing somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I wasn't playing it, I was just watching TV,
Yeah.
but somehow the music was already acting as a healing force. But
Right.
it was also kind of a little reminder that while I had to reinvent myself, it was also a reminder of a piece of myself that I had left behind that maybe I shouldn't have.
Mm.
Um, so, uh, like I said, I recovered more than 100%. They had me doing all kinds of physical therapy that got my lung capacity back up, gave me some great lung strength.
Yep.
I got in
Eh,
shape, uh, um, got stronger than I've ever been. Yeah,
That's
I mean,
kind
it
of
was
where I'm at in my
amazing.
journey. Yeah, you were joking about me checking in at the gym all the time, but
I
it's
was,
true,
yeah,
Mike.
I
It's
was.
like been such a part of my recovery, man. That whole fitness and exercise thing.
Yes, it has been taking care of my physical fitness is critical.
Hmm.
Um, if if you're not physically healthy, you're not 100% mentally healthy.
Agreed.
The body and the mind, they're
Totally
not two
agree.
separate things. It's all
Yep.
connected, and the more we learn about that, the more that's turning out to be true.
Yep.
Even your gut biome can
Right.
affect your personality and
Yeah.
can make choices for you.
Oh
It's
yeah.
trippy shit, but
Believe me, I know exactly what you mean. And I don't mean to again interrupt, bro, but in my journey, I've been, and it's kind of a buzz thing right now, but I've been aware of this for years. Is intermittent fasting, and when you are fasting, man, it cleanses your system. And I was just telling a buddy this the other day, if I'm going through a fasting period of like maybe a day or two, my mental focus, it's like laser focus. And then you have to slowly start incorporating certain types of food back into your diet. Because if you just go out and eat like a whole bowl of pasta or something, that shit'll knock you right out. You'll be out like a light, man.
yeah,
But
fasting
but
is
you're
not for
right.
me.
Your gut metabolism or whatever you want to call it, it plays a big role in not just your physical health but your mental health too. Couldn't agree with you more on that. I
Yeah,
had to
and
interject that.
well, I did change my diet. I've never done fasting. It doesn't work for me. I have some metabolic issues that
Yeah,
fasting is not good for.
yeah, it's not for everybody. Yep.
So, everybody's body is different.
Correct. Hmm.
And I had really gotten into getting fit, especially after when you come up against a real existential crisis,
Hmm.
where you're literally hanging on the edge of death
Yep.
for weeks. Uh, it's quite the wake up call. Uh,
I'm glad. Again, I don't mean to keep interrupting you, Mike, but I'm glad you mentioned that the way you did because I want our viewers and listeners to understand that, sometimes you say shit real fast and it's like, yeah, in one ear and out the other, but let's understand the impact of what you were just describing to us, man. That ain't no fucking joke. And not to take the focus off our conversation, bro, but I've shared on this program, Mike. I had a little cancer scare myself. I had bladder cancer. They
oh,
took out a golf ball sized tumor, and I thank God I didn't have to do radiation, but I did go through 6 months of chemo. Thank God I've been cancer free for over 6 years, and hopefully that's
good.
behind me now. The point I'm making is, just like just now, me just saying that real fast in one ear and out the other. But the point I'm making is when you are faced with the potential of, holy shit, this could fucking kill me, man, it sure changes your mindset
It
about
does.
that kind of stuff real fast. And what you went through, bro, definitely sounds to me like it was one of them wake up calls. And then, as I briefly mentioned, I know you had some other surgeries that
Yeah,
were wake up calls for you too, right?
I did. And it's it's so bizarre because looking back on it, it was like up to that point I had lived a charmed life,
Right.
um, and then this shit comes along, and it's like the hand of God slapping me down. Um, but after recovering from that and rebuilding my life, I did start getting more back into music, but once again, more as a hobby than anything else. Um, and it started getting more serious when my son started playing guitar,
Right.
and started to snowball. It was still very much just a hobby to to have fun with because I was still running my business, um, and um, I think I sometimes I have trouble remembering what order things happened in, but
Right.
I
Well, you had
remember,
a heart surgery of some sort, right? And then I
yeah.
know your wrist was fucked up, and
Yeah, I had a problem with my wrist, where I had to have my left wrist rebuilt, They
Right.
took out several bones in there,
Mm,
and I
mm.
lost a lot of mobility, but I could bend it just enough to still play guitar and bass. It was
Right.
it
Right.
could bend to just the perfect position, so I got lucky there. Um, that I could still play, but it was a lot. Once again, a lot of physical therapy. Once again, more opiates.
Kind of had to
Um,
learn to play music a new way, and if I can
yes,
use the phrase. Yeah.
not entirely new, but I had to work with this new wrist. Um, but had to go through the opiate thing again. Only, of course, this it was nowhere near as long, and the withdrawals were nowhere near as bad.
Right.
Um, but um, it was before heart surgery. I remember taking my son to his very first concert when
Mm-hmm.
he was 12 years old. So that would have been about just about 7 years ago. Um, and the very first show I took him to was this a brand new festival, outdoor festival that was happening in Orlando, and the headliner was Evanescence. Um,
Right. Right.
and
Oh
so
man.
there's my ex
Speaking of.
bandmate Will as the headliner. So my son and I went to the show. So his very first concert, all the bands on the bill he was a fan of,
Right.
and we got to meet all of them and hang out and chat and stay. I kept my 12-year-old son up way too late. Uh, there's
And
me, my son, and Will in the middle.
there
Uh,
you are, bro. Had to bring that picture up, and that again, not to interrupt you, Mike. I keep saying that, but for our viewers and listeners, that is that boy Will Hunt right there in the middle,
yes,
drummer for
yes,
Evanescence, man. How
yep,
cool is
that's
that?
Will, and that's my son when he was 12. If you notice how tall he is, he's 6'2" now. Um,
Right.
but that was a magical night, and he was thrilled to meet all these people.
Oh,
And
good
once
looking
again,
kid too, Mike. He definitely
thank
looks
you.
like you, no question about that. Yeah.
Well, these were some of the nicest people I had ever talked to in my life. Um,
Right.
I remember I was talking to Emma, who was the bass player and leader of a band called the Sick Puppies.
Oh yeah, well we got that picture too, bro. We're gonna bring that up right now.
Yeah,
Let's see
so
here. Let me bring
uh,
this up.
we were both a
How do you
big
bring
fan of
that up,
Sick
Dean?
Puppies. We were both a big fan of the
There
Sick
we
Puppies. Yeah,
go.
there's me and my son with that's Emma on the far left,
Yep,
um,
from
and Amy Lee
well, that's
in
where
between me and my brother.
I gotta interrupt, bro, because I've told you off the air, man. I am such a huge Amy Lee fan, man. God, that had to been cool as hell. I mean, I have gone to see her a couple of times. She did a solo show. Of course, I was a fan, way before that when she was dating like Sean from Seether,
Yeah,
and they did that whole broken video, which,
right.
I mean, God, man, talk about rock royalty from that
Yeah,
era, Sean and Amy. And then she did a solo show at the House of Blues in Orlando, man, and a lot of it was just her sitting at the fucking piano, man, singing. And oh my God, does she have the pipes? Then I seen her
yes.
last summer up in Detroit. She played an outdoor theater called Pine Knob with Evanescence. They warmed up for Corn, and man, it was so good to see her again. And she's so pretty, man. I just gotta say. So you got to tell me a little bit about Amy, man. What was it like, meeting with her and bullshit with her? Yeah, because I bet she's a self-described rock chick, and I'll just bet she's cool as hell, man.
Once again, one of the nicest people I've could possibly meet. I was standing there talking to Emma from Sick Puppies, and we were having a
Yep.
great conversation,
Yep.
talking about some of their music and some other stuff. And apparently, Amy and Emma were good buddies.
Okay.
Um, and Amy came literally skipping across the parking lot up to where we
Right.
were, and
Yeah.
uh, gave Emma a big hug and turned around and just looked me in the eye and said, "So, what's your story?" She had no idea who I was.
And didn't know
Uh,
you and Will
no,
played
she had no
together,
idea that
and
I had a history with her drummer.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but so I told her that, and um, we spent the next 30, 40 minutes standing there just chatting and shooting the breeze. And
Wow, bro, that's so
um,
cool, man.
it was what was really interesting, and this is one of the big differences between that that encounter and all the encounters I had when I was playing professionally.
Hmm.
Um, when I was playing professionally back in the day, and everybody was such a dick, all
Right,
anybody ever talked about was themselves.
right,
Well, I'm
right,
sitting there talking to Amy, and I'm not. I don't know. I don't really get starstruck. I mean, to me,
right.
people are people.
Yep.
So we're just shooting the breeze. She just might have more interesting things to talk about, but she didn't. She spent most of the conversation asking me about our lifestyle
That's so cool, man. You
because
know,
we were talking about the fact that when my business took off, we bought 10 acres out in the middle of nowhere and put up a
hmm,
house and a separate building for my office that has now become my music studio.
right.
Uh, and we had a bunch of farm animals at the time, and she was all into that and mentioned how she lives in this little apartment in Brooklyn and everything. So it
Wow.
was, she was fascinated by the dichotomy of the two situations, but she was just really really nice. And I mentioned to her that my wife was a huge fan,
Hmm.
but could not attend the concert that night. So she made a quick video on my phone
Wow, how cool is
of
that?
telling my wife how wonderful it was to meet me and her beautiful son, and that
Oh,
she
wow.
wished my wife could have been there and wishes her well and all that stuff. And thank you for listening, blah, blah, blah. I mean, just a little private message. And it was the sweetest thing
Yeah.
in the world.
Wow.
It was, yeah, she really did make an impression on me, as did Emma.
Well, I
Um,
got to tell you, Mike, I really appreciate that. And for any of our regular viewers and listeners, y'all know that I will shamelessly name drop on this show, man. I'm always name dropping. And, Mike, I do get starstruck sometimes. I will tell you, man. I've met, a lot of high profile artists. For God's sake, man, I just met Billy Bob Thornton a few weeks ago, who most people know as an actor, but he's actually
yeah,
a
he's got a rock
very
band too. And he's not
talented
bad.
musician. Yeah, I
Yeah,
went to
he's pretty
see
good.
the Box Masters here in Sacramento
Yeah.
area, and so I met him after the show, and he actually even did a little reel for us, a little shout out for the Dare Me podcast and everything. But
Oh, cool.
yeah, it was pretty cool. The thing is, though, man, I've had to tell like a couple of the artists that I've met, musicians. This one boy, Kasky, that I love, who's from the Orlando area, by the way. And I've kind of gotten to know the guy. I've met him a few times. I went to this music summit thing they had. And so you're having these conversations with people, but when you connect with their music on such a spiritual level almost, I had to tell the dude, I said, bro, I had to get to a point where I just got to separate you from the music. You're like just this guy I know, but fucking music is so powerful. So, yeah, I know what you're talking about, man, when we're talking about being starstruck and
Yeah,
stuff.
I
So,
think that's a good way to approach it, is to try to separate the the human individual in front of you
yeah,
from the art that they've created.
yes,
Because, like when I write a song, I know what it means to me,
yep,
but I don't put any expectations on having it mean the same thing to anyone else who hears it.
yeah.
Uh,
I
you
like
know,
how artists will say, hey, once they release something, you'll very often hear them say, well, now it's yours. I've released
yeah,
it. Now it's yours. Do with it.
if you get a different meaning from it than I do, I actually
Yep,
think that's fantastic.
yeah,
It hasn't, none of that's happened because really I'm just getting started here uh,
right.
with this career thing. But
Yep.
if somebody gets a fully different meaning, well, maybe that means the song's a little bit deeper than I thought it was. Who knows?
Exactly.
You
Well,
know,
you know
but
what, Mike? I'm glad, and I kind of want to redirect a little bit because I want to mention that we, for our listeners and viewers, we are going to be taking a little bit of a deep dive into some of your music here shortly. So we've been, talking about it all. We want to hear some of that stuff. And if you would give us a little insight into some of the songs that, you've written and stuff that we're going to play. before we do that, though, if you would, bro, because I really do want to get into some of the music, just tell us a little bit, if you would, about this transition that took place where you decided to retire from the internet business and kind of, as you've said, reinvent yourself, and that there was a
Yeah.
silver lining, if you will, from all that surgery and those challenges you had
Yeah.
in life, as you said, kind of come out the other side, and you're just really getting started. So, if you would, just tell us a little bit about that transition before we jump into some of the music here.
Okay. Well, uh, when I was 50, 5 years
Right,
ago,
right,
um, uh, I had a partial tear in the rotator cuff on my shoulder, and I went in to get that fixed, and they put me under. Um, and I immediately had a cardiac event, um, and turned blue. They woke me up. I woke up, I felt fine, and I was like, "Is my shoulder all fixed?" And they're like, "No, we couldn't even get started. You need to go see a cardiologist immediately." And I went to see a cardiologist. It took them about 3 weeks to figure out what the hell was wrong because I was still as strong as an ox. I got on there. One of the first things they do is a stress test on the treadmill, and when I got off the treadmill, I was remarking that that was more of a workout than I expected. And the tech said,
right.
um, he said, "Mr. Woods, uh, I had to keep raising the resistance to the point where the only other people that I've pushed that hard were 25-year-old athletes,
Mm,
uh, and here I was 50 with a heart that was literally about to explode."
wow.
Um, and but they finally did figure it out with MRIs. Although just like my lung surgery, when they opened me up, it was far more severe than they thought. The surgeon told me later that if they hadn't have gone in and done surgery when they did, I wouldn't have lasted another 48 hours.
Wow.
Um,
That close.
and
Wow.
um, you know, going along with the name of the show, Dare Me, I'll just go ahead and say this: I
Yeah.
died on the fucking table,
Wow. No shit, bro.
and I was dead for
Mm,
20 solid minutes. Um, and I remember it vividly.
mm.
That's not something I'll talk about,
No, I
um,
get it, bro.
but
That's a deep, intense thing.
it
Yeah.
had a hell of an effect.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but with the heart surgery, I did not recover 100%. Although I did get strong again, and last visit with the cardiologist, he said there's no restrictions on your physical activity whatsoever. And I reminded him of who he was talking to and how intense things can get for me,
Mm-hmm.
physically sometimes. I'm kind of a energetic dude. And he said, "Nope, you don't have to worry about anything. Just go live your life and enjoy it." And so that was a relief. That was a big weight off.
Sure.
But
Sure.
as as I came out of that heart surgery, especially with it being an even somehow closer call to death than the lung surgery had been, I didn't realize it for quite some time, but I had come out of that with complex PTSD. And um, I recovered from the heart surgery, and I had I decided to retire from the business that I had at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Partly because I was still recovering and it was really hard to keep up with because I had a pretty large client list. But I also saw the writing on the wall, that particular industry that that I was in was about to change in such a way that I was going to be obsolete.
Right.
So um, I decided, instead of waiting around for that to happen and beating my head against a wall trying to keep something alive, like beating a dead horse is what I would have been doing.
Right. You mentioned to me, bro, about this mindset of becoming a one man band, if you will. Was that kind of when that entered into the picture?
No, no. The uh, the the recovery from the heart surgery went well. Now, it
Right.
wasn't easy. I didn't think it went well, but when I described everything, to the cardiologist and to the heart surgeon of how my recovery had gone, they said, "Well, that's actually really good.
Mm.
It went really, really well for you." And I'm like, "If that's good, I don't even want to know
Right.
what a
Right.
bad turnout looks like or feels like." But I did recover from it, and I
Hmm.
decided at that point to retire from the business. And I didn't know what I wanted to do for a new career. I wasn't really in a place where I was even ready to think about that.
When you say retired from the business, just want to clarify, we're talking about your internet business that you had
Yes,
for so long. Yep.
yes,
Okay.
I shuttered the business. I closed it.
Yeah. Sure.
I
Hmm.
dismantled it.
Okay.
And
Sunsetted it. Yeah.
I did, and I retired the business,
Okay.
and wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with myself. Except one thing I knew is I wanted to play in bands again.
Hmm.
So I worked my ass off playing bass and got my bass playing chops back, and started poking around the music scene and poking around Facebook and attending some jam nights and open mic nights and stuff like that. Met a few people,
Right.
wound up joining a band that
Okay.
had just put out their first album, and they were going somewhere. They were not fucking around. And
Right.
I was sitting there going, wow, I haven't done this in a couple decades here. And the first band I land with is already doing serious stuff. I was like, this is amazing. Um, and just as we were about to, I think we were about to go back in the studio to record some more stuff. I have a hard time remembering if that was about to happen or if we were about to play a couple live shows, but I was doing some home repair. Uh, we had a water leak inside our house that had fucked up the floorboards in one section, and I was replacing the floor of our
Right.
house. Living out here in the middle of nowhere, you have to learn how to do everything yourself because you can't get anybody out here to fix anything.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you name it, I probably know how to do it.
Right.
Um, and I was cutting floorboards, and I wound up having a really horrific accident with a
Mm.
circular saw.
Ooh, pardon the expression, but I used to do a lot of that stuff. And a buddy of mine, who you probably remember from back in the day, Tom Dotson used to call me Harry Homemaker. He'd be like, Glenn, you know just enough to be dangerous. You better call somebody. You know?
Yeah, I wound up having to learn everything, and I decided to learn like electrical. I decided to learn it to code.
Hmm.
So an inspector has never looked at anything out here on our farm. I build structures out here on our 10 acres all the time, and no
Right.
permit, no nothing. Nobody says shit.
No, I get it.
But
Yeah.
just in case, I
Sure.
decided, well, let's make sure it's all up to code. So I learned all that.
Yeah.
Uh, but um, it was the accident
Hmm.
was probably the most
Serious.
traumatic thing I've ever been through. I have I don't know if you can see it here. How do I get my hands in front of the camera? There we go. So I have 10 fingers now. Uh,
Right.
there
Oh, I can tell a
there was
couple
a
of them.
couple hours
Yeah.
where I did not.
Right.
There was a couple hours where I did not have all 10 fingers attached. Obviously, they were able to reattach them. Um, and once again, according to the hand surgeon, everything went way better than they expected.
Right.
And I'm like, if this is better than expected, I don't want to know how bad it could have been,
Right.
because my left hand is predominantly disabled. I've got my thumb is the only digit that's really fully okay and functional. These two fingers here work mostly, and uh, I can do a little bit of stuff on the guitar with them. Um, but
The other two, not so much.
these,
So,
yeah, these two fingers don't really do anything, and I can't even feel them.
so you
Um,
really did have to, talking about reinventing and
yeah,
transforming yourself, you had to learn how to play guitar all over again, if you will. So, or even, as we'll say, reinvent yourself as an artist. Is that a good way to
all of the
put it?
above, all of
Right.
the above.
Right.
What I did was first, I freaked the fuck out and
Yeah.
was like, well, that's the end of music. Got this great restart for a hot 5 minutes. And then this happens. And I'm like, now
Yeah.
what the fuck am I going to do with myself?
Right.
Um, but there was something about the music that just would not let me go.
Mm.
And
Mm.
I remember that I had this idea. I did a lot of research. I was like, okay, after catastrophic hand injuries, how have people dealt with it?
Yeah,
And
and I don't mean to interrupt, bro, and not to compare apples to oranges. I'm sure it may be the same for some of our viewers and listeners, but one of the first things that came to mind was that boy from Def Leppard, man, who lost his
yeah,
fucking arm, the
that
drummer.
is the most rock and roll story of all time.
Talk
That is
about
that dude.
determination,
That dude is
man.
the most rock and roll motherfucker ever to live, in
Yeah,
my opinion.
hell yeah, hell
You
yeah.
can't say
Yep,
shit about Rick Allen
yeah.
to me because that
And I
guy's
actually
that guy's
went
a
to
god.
see him when he came back at the old Orlando Arena. Now they
When they
have
did
the
the show in
Amway
the
Center.
round,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I was there, bro.
that was
Yeah.
awesome. It was awesome.
So, man, that's so inspiring. And you as well, Mike, coming back from the injury you just described. Now,
Thank you.
all the injuries and surgeries you've had, it's fucking inspiring to me. That's for damn sure.
Well, in my research, I only ever found one guy that anybody talked about that had a hand injury as severe as mine that found a way to keep playing. And that was Django Reinhardt.
Okay, not
Um,
familiar.
and he basically invented his own tuning and his own style of playing. Um, I still wanted to play cover songs.
Right,
I wanted
right.
to be able to play Judas Priest and
It's kind of what I
AC/DC
did.
and Iron Maiden and all that kind of shit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I thought, well, my 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 right hand is
Mm-hmm.
still fine,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe I can learn to play left-handed
Okay.
because my left hand, I could still hold a pick quite
Mm-hmm.
easily. And I thought, okay, well, I can do, the strumming with this hand and this one on the fretboard if I can learn to play left handed. So I did that. While I still had a cast on my hand, I started learning how to play left handed. Um, where the fuck that kind of determination comes from, I cannot tell you. Um, I can only tell you that I remember a quote from Ron Smallwood, the manager, the longtime manager for Iron Maiden, and he
Right.
said about he was asked about if this band is ever going to retire, Iron Maiden, and he goes, uh, "I really don't think so. They're musicians, musish. That's what they do, and they can't
Music.
do anything
I
else."
like that. You know
And
what, bro? I got to interject again. I once heard an interview with Mick Jagger, and they asked him, dude, you're fucking almost 80, man. You obviously don't need the money anymore. There's a lot of fucking work going on tour and all that shit. Have you ever thought about retiring? And his response was, he said, he goes, people ask me that all the time. He goes, but for creatives, I don't think it's possible to retire. You just have this something inside of you that drives you, and you just made me think of that when you said that.
yeah, it's
Musicians.
I've heard that from so many musicians that honestly, there have been times where, due to all the difficulties, I was thinking to myself, this is an impossible mountain to climb. I
Mm-hmm.
and yet I it was this compulsion that I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't fight, and I kind of felt trapped
Mm-hmm.
by it. But I was learning to play left-handed. It was going well, but it was very slow going. It was extremely frustrating. So I thought to myself, I need something to distract me while I'm doing this to alleviate the frustration. Like when I get too frustrated with trying to play guitar left-handed, I need some other instrument or something else to do to mitigate that frustration.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how the hell the next idea came to me, I couldn't tell you, but somewhere from deep in the cosmos, an idea found its way to my brain that
Right.
I should learn how to sing.
Okay.
Now, I had never sung lead. I had never been a good singer. I had no idea how to sing. I just thought it would be fun to learn how to do it. And so I got
A-
together with a
And
vocal
and at
coach.
what age are you now when you decided to do this? Just to give us perspective.
51,
So
52.
here you've been performing music since you were a teenager, touring as a young guy. Never tried being that front man out there singing. And at 51, man,
Well, no,
that is
I did try singing lead on one song at one show one time, and it was a fucking disaster because I
okay.
didn't know what I was doing.
Well,
Um,
yeah, but man, I'm just telling you, bro, that's so inspirational to me because fuck, I've said it openly on this show many times. I'm not shy about my age. I'm a 61-year-old man. I just started fucking really taking, music and singing seriously not even a couple of years ago with production. And we talked about auto tune a little bit off the air. And I know we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But the point I'm making is, bro, that's so fucking inspirational, not just to me, but I'm sure to our viewers and listeners, man, that, age is just a number, man. And, we're talking about reinventing and yourself and transforming, man. And I just think it's awesome that, you say you don't know where the idea came from, but, you embraced it and at 51 start singing, man. And like I
yeah.
said, we're going to play some of your music in a minute here, and you fucking rock, bro.
Well, thank you very much. I got I found a vocal coach, this wonderful woman named Kristen Quior, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. I could never really say it right, but she's with
Well, shout
a
out
company.
Christian. Yeah.
She's with a company in Orlando called Sing Orlando,
Okay.
and she and her husband run the business, and they really really know what they're doing. Um, and the lung surgery came into play with this, um, because the vocal coach Kristen, uh, one in the first session with me, she wanted to find out, okay, what's your lung capacity like,
Mm-hmm.
and so she had me blowing into this device, where you're supposed to keep just steady pressure breath for as long as you can, um, and longer with that exercise than any student she'd ever had. And
Right,
that
right,
was completely due to the physical therapy that I did after lung surgery, where they actually had me blowing into a similar device
right.
to
Yeah.
exercise my lungs and to get that lung capacity back up. And I wound up with lung capacity of almost that of like a free diver.
Wow.
It was stunning even to me. Um, Now I still didn't know if the noise coming out of my mouth was going to be worth hearing or not. Um, but I recorded a cover of me singing an old Judas Priest song called "Diamonds and Rust,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's a the latest the modern version they do is this soft acoustic version, but back in the 70s they did it real hard rocking, and it was this soaring operatic style. And I brought that video to my vocal coach, and she said that song fits your voice better than anything I've ever heard. And I
Awesome.
thought, well, fuck me running, man. if
Yeah, yeah.
if a song that Rob Halford sang, that is one of the hardest to sing, and
Mm-hmm.
she's telling me that's the best sound out of my voice that she's heard, maybe I'm onto something.
Well,
Uh,
you know what, Mike? That's something I learned too, even with the people that have coached and trained me. Is because I love doing covers. I got some original stuff. I got a pen game, and like told you, I've download beats off the internet, and I'll fuck around here in the studio. But I love doing covers, and one of the things I learned is what you just touched on is that you really do gotta pick music for your voice. There's some songs I've said to myself, "Ooh, I'd really like to cover that," and then I lay it down. And I'm like, "Oh, that fucking song is not for me, man."
yeah,
So
I've discovered that, my voice absolutely has limitations.
right, right,
um,
yeah, yeah.
and one of those limitations is, I don't sound pretty. uh, you know Lucky for me, I like heavy metal
As
because
we're gonna hear shortly, by the way, I keep teasing we're gonna play some of your music, but we're gonna do it here real soon.
yeah, my voice kind of sounds a little bit, it sits in a similar frequency to the guitars,
Right,
which
right.
sometimes can be a little problematic. But I took the singing thing very seriously. The left-handed guitar playing I hit a plateau with it
Mm-hmm.
and wound up leaving that behind.
Mm-hmm.
But I discovered that by using what we call open tunings on all the guitars, I was able to play with two fingers.
Right.
And so I started writing music that way. Um, and I personally, I've been fairly pleased with the results
Yeah.
um, of how the songs themselves have turned out. And, you know, I'm learning more and more about the recording of it. So the recordings, I think, are getting better. Um, but I mean, I've only got 6 songs released so far. I mean, I'm really just starting out with this stuff.
Well, you know what, Mike? I want to, I really do want to jump into some of your music here. And I just want to reiterate, though, bro, what an inspiration you are to me personally. And I'm sure to our viewers and listeners as well. I sometimes I don't know how should I say it, a little self conscious about my age, and I don't know why the fuck I'm like that, because
I
I
am too.
feel like a kid, I still do. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm fucking 19 something. Some people tell you I act like I'm 12. I've said it on here before, Mike. I tell my kids, man, I refuse to grow up, and my son, who's 31 now, said, Dad, growing up is overrated, and it's like that's the mindset I try to keep. And so where I'm going with that is what you just shared, bro, is the old saying, you can teach an old dog new tricks, and age
Absolutely.
is just a number, bro. It's all about a mindset.
Well, I've learned a lot about singing. Um, Luckily, I was already, by the time I was 19 or 20, I was already a very well educated musician,
Yep, yep.
uh, which has been extremely helpful. Um, and when I get together with other educated musicians, it makes communication about the music a lot easier.
Yep.
Um, but um, I had I had put a band together
Uh-huh.
for a little bit, and we had a full working band, and we were trying to get enough original material to go out and play shows and stuff. And then I caught COVID, um,
Mm,
and I had that shit for about 6 weeks,
mm,
and it just shredded my throat.
mm.
And it was another 6 weeks before I could make any kind of sound out of my throat that wasn't like a frog croaking. Um, and um, well, the band got impatient and fucking left. And you know, uh, I'm real okay with that though, because in my opinion, the stuff that I'm doing now sounds heads and tails better than the stuff I was doing with them.
Well, and
Um,
like you said, that kind of transitioned you into being this one man band, if you will. And I got to tell you, Mike, I didn't know you had the COVID too. And I'm
yeah,
looking at, just so y'all know, if you're watching or listening to the show, we all have our names and where we're at under, our videos and all. And each one of us actually physically typed that in ourselves. And so Mike, I love what you wrote under there, songwriter, composer, and shitstorm survivor. And bro, how fucking true is that, man? All the stories you told us here today about the challenges that you've, overcome, which again is so inspirational to me, and I'm sure anybody watching or listening. So, Mike, I just want to say thank you so much, for being open and sharing all that information with us, and that kind of brings us to this fruition of it all, if you will, of some of this music that you've been dropping in the last year. That, man, that's what kind of really attracted me to reconnecting with you on social media. I was like, God damn,
oh, that's
there's
great.
Mike Woods. I ain't seen that motherfucker in a long time. What the hell's he doing? And then all of a sudden you dropped this tune, and I listened to that shit, and I was like, whoa. In fact, I think I sent you a comment like, bro, with that face of amazement, like, what the fuck? I had no idea. So let's go into this first tune if we
Well,
can.
there's one thing I want to preface that with.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead,
Uh,
bro.
when the band split, uh, because quote I just don't feel like we're making any progress. I was like, well, of course we're fucking not, you dipshit. But anyway, um, after that, I wanted to put another band back together, but
Right.
really all I needed to get the songs happening, I thought was I at least need a guitar player because I'm
Okay.
so limited in what I can play.
Right.
Uh, so I had a guitar player who played on 4 of the tracks, the first 4 that were released.
Mm-hmm.
But he was wanting to do something a little heavier, a little more progressive, and a little more aggressive. And now he's got his own thing going that's much better suited to his style, and I think he's a lot happier with it. And it really sounds more like him. And so, more power to him. All the best. And then I dropped 2 songs where I am the only musician playing on it,
Mm-hmm.
where I covered everything. I played all of it.
Right.
So
Right.
um, I was, so the guitar playing is not the greatest, but
Oh, I think
I
it's
decided,
fine.
well, I don't really need to feature the guitar as much as a lot of heavy music does, and I'm kind of just going with that at the moment. I want to my goal is that I want to get at least a solid hour of material, like a
Mm-hmm.
good solid album's worth at least, to go out and start playing shows with. So I might wait until I have that many songs before I try to build another band. Who knows?
Well, hey, I think what you got out there now is awesome, bro. And Dean, if you could, bro, can you bring up the graphic for this first song? And then I know you're gonna handle the videos, but I'm trying to, if you could bring up that photo I've got set there, just so we can see. Yeah, there it is. A fucking
Yeah.
artwork here. I love this artwork, Mike. And I was telling Mike off the air, y'all, that I did a deep dive into all his music here this past week, and this, I like all of it. This was definitely my favorite one. Get Me Out of Here. And again, this artwork is sick, man. And so, let's go ahead and give a listen to. I actually did a reel with clip of this song, and that's what we're going to play to hear it a little bit, Mike. And then we'll do some of the others. And after we listen to this, maybe you can tell us a little bit about it. But like it says right here in the photo, y'all, this is now streaming on all your favorite music service. So if you like this little clip that Dean's about to play for us, you can go and get it on any of your favorite music services. So Dean, you want to go ahead and play that one, bro?
This is from your reels, right?
You got it, bro. All right, so Mike, again, I got to tell you, bro, we've talked about it off the air and on this show. We'd love to play whole songs and stuff, but we don't want to get dinged for any kind of copyright, so we just do clips so that we
Yeah,
don't
so far so
drop in the
good.
algorithms. What's that, Dean?
So far so good.
Yeah, so far so good because
Yeah.
we've done it a
It
few
is it
times.
is my understanding that with the deal I have with the distributor that I use,
Uh huh.
if anybody on YouTube were to use um, a significant portion of any of my copyrighted music, um, YouTube's not going to give you a full copyright strike.
Right.
They,
They'll give you a
but
warning.
they will demonetize it potentially.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but
But
that's to
fa-
make sure that I get the money,
yeah.
Right.
But
that I
Facebook,
get paid for every stream. But it's
because
a good idea to do the short clips so you can avoid all that.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
But this,
Facebook can trigger you in 10 seconds.
yeah,
Yeah,
they
we
can.
just don't want it to drop out of the algorithms. But anyways, with all
I
that
got a
said, Mike.
copyright strike. I got a copyright strike on one of my own songs.
Yeah, right. That's funny.
Well,
Because
They're real strict
I
sometimes.
released one on YouTube myself
True.
with a video I made myself. But because it wasn't released through the distribution service, they put a copyright strike on it. But it wasn't actually a copyright strike. It was just some kind of warning. And I learned later once I finished freaking out, oh my God, somebody says they've copyrighted my music, I figured out what was happening. It was just part of the distributor's deal where they they put a claim on it, not a strike, but a
Yeah.
claim, so
Right,
that
right.
I get paid for the streams.
Yep.
So
Well,
that's it.
Either
nonetheless,
way, it's coming to you.
yeah, and
Yeah, and
nonetheless, with all that said, we're just going to play 30-second to 1 minute clips of some of these songs. But I'd like to hear, if we could, Mike, a little bit from you on maybe what inspired the song, and tell us a
yeah,
little bit about this one because I just think again this is a fucking rock and jam right here, bro.
I really appreciate that. This song, I have said, is like 30 years in the making.
Okay.
I had written an instrumental with that was very similar to this song 30 years ago, and even recorded it, but it was just an instrumental. Um, and when when the band left, I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do now? And I resurrected this old tune and I rearranged it so that I could play it with my current limitations. Um, and wrote the lyrics. And Get Me Out of Here is about getting out of my own head.
Right, I like that. Yep.
Because at the time I wrote that song, the inside of my head was a bad fucking neighborhood.
Was a mess. Yeah. Yep. Right.
So that's what this song is all about.
Well,
Is
let me ask you this, bro. I can't move on to the next song without asking about this fucking artwork, bro, because
Oh,
this is like cool as fuck. Who did this? And tell us a little bit about that.
okay. With this one, the main image you're looking at there, somebody else originally created a version of that,
Okay.
that was somehow royalty free.
Okay.
And so I grabbed it and modified it considerably to suit the image you see there, to suit the song, to because it's supposed to convey the kind of insanity
Right.
and that screaming desperation that I was feeling at the time.
Yep.
But I worked in with Photoshop for so many years that putting something together like that is kind of second nature. I just, with some of them, I start from scratch.
Uh-huh.
Some of them I start with friends. I have a few photographer friends, and they'll let me use their photos. And then others, I'll scour the internet for particular types of imagery and
Right.
gather little pieces and parts from here and there and put something together that
Well,
is original enough.
yeah.
But this also is definitely one of my favorites, my favorite
Yeah.
images
Well,
for the
I
band.
do love it, man, and I appreciate you giving us the insight. It's all about get me out of here, get out of my head, and we talked a little bit about how once you put it out there and it becomes, the universe's music, if you will, people make out of it, what they will and apply it to their own lives. And man, of course, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking about when I was struggling to kick my fucking addiction, man. It's like
Yeah,
I literally I've talked on this show, Mike, how I feel like I was fucking possessed, bro, man. My
yeah,
my whole fucking being was hijacked, man.
yeah,
And it's like
exactly.
I love how you got that eye right there in the chest, like get me the fuck out of here, man. So I get
That's
it, bro.
exactly what that means.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, I
but
love
yeah,
it.
and it could be for some people, it could be getting out of an abusive relationship.
Yeah, or
Uh,
whatever. Yeah.
for other people,
So
it could be getting out of a shitty job.
a
You
bad
know,
job.
it could just
Yeah,
be,
I get that, bro.
getting out of a toxic situation of any kind, whether it
Any
be
kind.
like
Yeah.
me, it was my toxic situation was all living in my own fucking head.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well,
that is for me, that song right there is several therapy sessions.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
what that
yeah.
is for
Yeah.
me.
I highly encourage anyone that's watching or listening and comes across the recorded version of this program, go check that tune out and listen to the whole thing, and you will love it, especially if you're a rocker. So let's go on to the next one. This is actually your latest release. Is that
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, I just released this a few days ago, I think, about a week ago maybe.
Within the last week. Yeah.
I Yeah, it's very this one is farm fresh.
Yeah, and actually, the clip we're gonna watch, bro. That first one was a reel I put together, but now we're gonna actually see part of a video that you put together for this
Oh
tune, and
no.
this is like fresh off the presses, y'all. I mean, Mike's not bullshit. This literally just dropped within. I don't even think it's been a week, you know. So,
Yeah.
Dean, whenever you're ready, man, let's go ahead and play the clip from "Go Higher."
Um,
That'll be video 2.
yeah. Do we know how many seconds it is? For some reason, they all loaded up with the same name.
Oh
Go
yeah,
Higher
no worries.
Song,
Well,
1, 2,
well,
3.
while Dean's
Do you
getting
know how
that
many
ready,
seconds
Mike.
that video is? Can you-
Uh, well, I don't off the
Yeah.
top of my head. They were all between 30 seconds and a minute, you know. So I just kind of loaded them in the order we'd
Just
be playing them.
Let me do a little
But
bit of thinking here.
yeah, well, Mike, while Dean's loading that one, why don't you tell us a little bit about this song and what the inspiration for this one was and the meaning behind
Absolutely.
this song, "Go Higher"?
Well, first of all, I'd like to talk about the artwork.
Yeah, the artwork for this is sick too. I love it. Yeah.
This one was a lot of fun to do. It was a lot of work, um, but the the what I was trying to convey is um, that the woman in the image, she went higher, she went too high, and
Okay.
now she's dead and frozen in space.
Mm, mm.
But I found a cool image of a cosmic background and rearranged it and put some other elements into it. Uh, Found the spacesuit and had to recreate a lot of it from scratch. Made the face mask look like it was cracking and
Right.
breaking, and
Yep.
made
Yep.
the face look like it was frozen and frosted over. Um, I actually started with an image of a famous actress named Monica Bellucci.
I was gonna
Uh,
say that's a pretty girl there.
she is one of the most stunning women on the planet, in my opinion. She was a famous Bond girl and has been in a lot of other movies. But I took this image of her that was originally a very flowery, colorful springtime image, but I just wanted that face shape,
Right.
and wanted to make it look like, even though this is tragic and she's dead and frozen in space, there's still beauty there.
Wow,
Uh,
and the images got that 3D feel to it as
Okay,
well.
I got the song.
Okay, let's go
so
ahead and give it a listen. Dean's ready to play it. Go ahead.
go ahead.
But there's a will, there's a way, and every dog has his day. I took it all, and the devil just his due. Maybe this is my time, and now the world will be mine. Give me the space, and the dusty to flow through. Sailing on a solo wind. Higher than you've ever been.
Yeah, bro, that was a fucking jam right there, man. I love it.
You
I wanted to keep it going, man, but
you asked earlier about some of the grunge influence.
yeah, yeah.
In the chorus where I'm singing "Go Higher,"
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I did, I can't even tell you how many freaking harmonies that I
Right.
sang to make it sound like that. But I'm using the predominant harmony that I'm using was used by Alice in Chains.
Oh,
Um,
right, right.
and that's where I got the idea to use a harmony like that was a little non-standard. It's got a little bit of a disconcerting feel to it.
Yeah,
Um,
well, you know what? Not to interject, bro, but we haven't really talked a whole lot about it. Maybe we'll touch on it a little bit more, but we did discuss a little bit about auto tune, music production, and things to that nature, and all the plugins and special effects you can use. And when I'm doing music and stuff, one of the plugins I like using is that chorus plugin that does exactly kind of what you're alluding to, provides all these harmonies where, it's just me singing, man, but it sounds like I got a whole fucking chorus behind me, and it's pretty cool playing with that stuff, man.
yeah,
So I get it. Yeah.
for live work, I have a pedal. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like a big ass guitar pedal, but it's
Right.
specifically for vocals, and it's got a little. little bit of AI in there where it can put together the harmonies, and it's got a
Right.
little tiny microphone in it, and it'll listen to the rest of the band to
Right.
determine what the key is, so that
Right.
when it kicks in with the harmonies, it's giving me the right harmonies.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, now on this
but
one,
but
Mike,
in recording, I don't use that. That's just probably eight tracks of me singing
right,
the
right.
same
I
line
got you.
in a different pitch.
Yeah, I say it all the time to people, man. Music, when you really dig deep, it's all about layers, 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 layers. But with this one, Mike, this is out there on the streaming platforms as well, correct? I know
Yeah,
it's out there on YouTube and
yeah,
and whatnot.
it's on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. I mean, when
Yep.
I release a song, I call it releasing it into the wild. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I send it to the distribution service, and they just handle all that for me of getting it out. They push it out to all the different services, and
yep,
they even will create a quick YouTube video
yep.
that's just a static image of the cover art
Okay.
with the song playing behind it, and so there's an immediate, an almost immediate presence on YouTube just
Yeah,
for that, and then I'll go back and make a video for it, like that
right.
video you saw. I strung together a bunch of clips that, some of them I've modified heavily, and some of them they were just fine right out of the
I
box.
thought it was cool as hell, and that, like I said, man, it even has that 3D feel to it. So, hey, Dean, let's bring the next photo up for the next song. I'm trying to remember which one it was. Let me hit the old clicker there. It is, oh yeah, the Land of the Blind, and
Give
bro,
me
you
one quick second. I'm sorry, I have to go get something real quick. I'll be
Oh
right back.
yeah, do you, bro? So yeah, man, I was just gonna say that I put a little bit of a teaser out yesterday for this song, and if you go to Cult of Storm YouTube channel, Mike put a little teaser of the intro to this song out there, and it's really cool. But we're gonna hear another clip of it in just a short little while. So while we're waiting for there,
Do
you
we really want to stretch stretch our our luck here, going
okay?
to a 51-second video,
Okay, yeah, yeah.
or do you
Let's
want to
go
keep it
ahead.
to 30? Do you want to
L-
keep it to 30
Let's
seconds and
just
I'll
no.
just
We'll
dump
go
out?
ahead and play this whole clip
You
because
want to get shut?
this
All
has got
right,
a real
let's go for it.
slow intro, and I don't think any algorithms are going to pick this up. But let's play the
Let's
video
figure
for
it
this
out, I
one,
guess.
and then we'll hear
Well,
from
if you've
Mike a
got the
little bit.
latest version of this, I cut out the long intro, and when I did that, um,
I
this song
particularly
this
liked it.
song broke all the streaming records I had by a
Mm,
factor of three
mm.
Wow. Well, let's
within
give it a
12
listen.
hours.
Let's give it a listen. Go ahead, Dean. Let it ride.
You wanted all to stay the same. To be safe and never change. Now you're lost and it became so strange.
Oh,
Okay,
Now,
well
I
that's
would
all
like to
good.
right.
talk
Yeah,
a little bit
yeah.
about this
I
song because
like that
something,
intro, bro. I like the long intro. I
well,
do.
something really significant happened for me in this song. This was the first one that I released where there were no other musicians on it.
Okay.
Um, and you hear a guitar, a lead guitar, slide guitar being played there. Slide guitar is usually something you hear in country and bluegrass
Mm,
and stuff. And I was thinking, okay, well, I would like to put a slide guitar thing in there. How do you do that and not sound country? Um,
Right.
but the reason I chose slide guitar was because I only have two fingers that work, so playing crazy solos is not happening. But with my hand here, um, while it's mainly, my two main fingers here that work.
Yeah, yeah.
My ring finger is stuck in this position, this bent position.
Right, right.
It
Yeah.
doesn't it doesn't unbend.
Hmm.
But what I discovered was that I get a guitar slide,
Right.
Hmm.
Wow, very
and it's
cool,
in the
bro.
perfect position for playing slide guitar.
Talk about reinventing yourself, right? You know?
So I actually put the slide guitar part on there more as a placeholder, thinking I'll get a lead guitar player to put a quote real solo in there later. But when I listened back to it, I was like, I actually really am digging that. So I left it, and I kind of gave up on the idea of trying to bring any other musicians into it. I just let it loose.
Right.
But this song, first of all, the last song, "Go Higher,"
Hmm.
um, I rewrote the lyrics to that thing like three times, and it wound up being just kind of a fun song, really, just kind of like a bit of a space travel sci-fi romp.
Yeah.
Whereas the
It's
land of
fun.
the
It's
land of
definitely
the
fun.
blind is once again for me therapy music,
Okay.
um,
Right on. Well,
because
on
I I,
that,
I
yeah.
I remembered a phrase that I came across when I was learning how to speak Irish,
Okay.
um, and it was a quote that says, "In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king." And
Wow.
so I did some research on the phrase, and I found out the first instance of that was actually in Latin in the 1600s. Um, and so there's the original intro to the song was all in Latin and all about how life has changed, and if you don't embrace it, you're fucked.
Well,
Uh,
Mike, I got to tell you, bro, I got to interject. We're going to have you back on the show because you just talked about something I had no fucking idea. You just said when you were learning Irish and you just kind of, went right over that in one ear and out the other like no big deal. But there's got to be a fucking fascinating story behind that. And I know there's a lot of other cool stuff we want to talk about too. But I do want to jump into this other music so we can spend a little time talking about that, bro. But I really do hope to have you back on the show again. So let's go to this next tune because this is a cool tune as well, bro. And so I love what you wrote there, how it says, don't let anything drag you down. Find your power to overcome life's challenges. Kick ass, live your best life. I didn't write that on there. Mike did, y'all, just so you know. And it's out there on your favorite streaming platform, too. So tell us a little bit about this one before we play the clip, Mike. What's
yeah,
this all about?
once again, is more therapy music.
Yeah, right.
And in this one, I kind of used the analogy of um, a muscle car uh,
Yeah,
to becoming strong myself, mentally and physically.
right.
And I like old cars. My daily driver is a 30-year-old Ford Bronco, so I'm always working on that damn thing, and tuning up a powerful vehicle. Um, it struck me that there was a similarity there uh, between getting a powerful vehicle back up to its full power and getting myself back up to
I
my full
love the
potential.
analogy. Love that analogy. Yes. Well, Dean, you got this one ready, bro? Let's go ahead and give this one a listen.
Yes, I do.
All right, here we go. Into the haze.
Turn the key and run the line. Throttle up and hammer down. Motor sings and control. Rolling, rolling.
be bopping your head to that one. I got to tell you, bro, that tune really gives me the feel of like, man, I can just see you on the stage at like fucking Amway or a Pickett Arena just jamming out to that, man. That's like a great fucking tune, bro. I really appreciate the insight you're giving us on these jams, man. That's a great one right there, Mike. I love that tune
Well,
too.
thank you very much. I need to make a video for it. One thing I've
Okay.
discovered about this new era is, back in the early '90s, you couldn't do this.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
no fucking
Technology's
way
changed.
you
Yeah.
could put out a product worth listening to in your home. What we were doing back then is we were working with tape, and the best we could do at home was demos to send into record companies and to A&R people and stuff.
I can
uh,
hear you, Dean. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mike, but I know Dean's over there kind of shaking his head because this is something he knows a lot about, Mike. And I know Dean, he used to do a lot of music videos. Kind of not your thing anymore, Dean. I know I've talked to you about it, and you're like, I don't know if I really want to do that anymore. Is that still where you're at with that whole thing,
No,
Dean?
he was talking about, back in the 90s, you couldn't. Yeah, you couldn't. You had to have $1 million studio
yeah, there
to
was
do
no
music.
video ability back then. I'm just talking about recording the music. You couldn't
Right.
record this kind
Yeah,
of
that's what I
music
mean. Yeah,
at home
yeah,
back then,
yeah.
because there's no way to get it. And this, to me, this still isn't quite pro quality. I'm still learning how to just use the software and a little bit
Yeah.
of hardware that I still use. But back in the day, we just, you know even the best of these tape multi-track recorders, you
Hmm.
know, you would still just get some.
Hmm.
The best you could do still was nowhere near pro level. So
Yep.
you were only making demos that were never meant to be heard by anyone
Right.
other
Right.
than A&R people at a record label, or
Right.
maybe a club owner that you're trying to get a gig at.
Well,
Uh,
you mentioned you want to do a video for this one, and that's kind of what came into my mind. Is I'm always trying to put people together, and I thought, ooh, a
Hmm.
Mike and Dean collab
Yeah.
maybe on a video. And Dean, you remember back in the day when we were doing that food show, Taste of Central Florida? I'd come over to your studio, and you would be there filming these rap videos for some of the rappers there in West Orlando, and they'd have a whole fucking entourage out there back in the studio and shit, and I'd be like, God damn, what's going on
the
here,
the
man? And
the the, the problem with doing music, my repertoire was mostly rap videos,
yeah,
and most of them are bad, just bad.
well, they
It's
had
like
their ideas what they
somebody
wanted to
comes into your
do.
studio and they say, "I want to do a music video." I'm like, "Oh God!" I first say, "Oh God, really?" And then they want to play their music. And
And
then I
that's not
go,
necessarily your style,
I was
right?
cringing,
Yeah.
like I was cringing, waiting for Facebook to kind of throw a strike at us and block us out, But the
But there
videos
were
are
some
always,
good
the music's
videos,
always
bro.
horrible. It's always
I
horrible, and
thought
you do the
some
best you
were
can
okay.
do with it, but it's still
Well, they were all
90%
pretty
of it.
generic. They had all the pretty girls dressed in the real
Yeah,
tight clothes,
the hot
briefcases
tub and
full
the
of
girls
money,
and the.
gold chains,
Now
It's like,
I did one music video, a rock music video from Iceland. It was a
okay,
group from Iceland. It was probably the only group from Iceland,
okay.
But I did their video. Uh,
Yeah.
and then there was a couple of gospel ones that I did. But yeah, it's just. But
Yeah. Well,
I
I
gotta
just,
tell you, no, I'm just gonna say one more thing.
yeah.
Mike, you set up that first song. You set up such a disclaimer saying, the guitar isn't that great. I'm like, dude, don't ever do that again, because I'm listening to it and it sounds clean. It
Oh,
sounds,
Mike, it's true,
you're
bro.
doing this. You said what, off of 3 chords?
well,
It's
this
fucking
particular
awesome.
song, I did not play the guitar on. That's
I
not me
know, but
playing.
that the first song, when you threw that disclaimer at us and you told us that story about how you were trying to make music with like 3 chords,
I
and I'm
picked
like,
up on that too, Dean, but I didn't say anything. So I thought it, and you're saying it. I'm glad you are, Mike. It's true, bro. You're more talented than I think you
don't
realize, bro.
don't play us down. I'm
Yeah.
expecting, a cat just jumped on your guitar and started, and you're going, this is something I would have expected to hear at any concert. Um,
Wow,
Sounds good.
I
Yeah,
appreciate
that's
I'm
that.
that's what
impressed
I say. Even
yeah,
just
I'm
listen to
saying for
that
a
last
local
clip.
boy, sounds good.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah,
But
Well,
what
anyway,
I'm trying to
that's my
get to
story.
is, see, I don't really ever feel like a local boy. Um,
right. Yeah, you've
I've
toured and
never
all
really
that.
had that
Yeah.
mindset.
But you are. You're an Orlando boy, whether you like it or not. Central Florida, man. You know, it
I,
is what it
but
is,
when it comes to
man.
the music, I don't really, I'm not really targeting like a local scene.
Hmm.
Um, like even with my internet business, it was worldwide.
Right. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
had clients all over the planet, and with the music, I kind of think
Same
that way
thing.
too. I
Yeah.
don't really think in a limited way, but I have a few friends in the local scene here, and I would go to see them play in some of these tiny, just shitty little dives.
Yeah.
And I came up to one buddy after he played a show there, and I'm like, "What the fuck are you doing here, man?"
Right.
And and I told him, I was like, "This is doing you more harm than good. You can't be playing these little dive shitholes. You got to have some discernment on what kind of gigs you decide to take if you want to get anywhere."
Yeah. Well,
Now,
you know,
once
I'm
again, I'm
sorry.
I'm just starting. There's only 6 songs released.
Yep.
Um, I don't have enough listeners yet to even know if this shit's actually any good or
Oh,
not.
it's good. It's good. It's more than just good. And I think where Dean was going at, although with the internet, hey, let's face it, we're all on the world stage. Even as I mentioned with this little podcast, man, we got people listening from the UK, Canada, South America, and shit like that.
Yeah.
But we're still local boys, man, just guys from around the corner and shit. And here we are doing this. So anyway, Mike, this next tune, man, I gotta ask you about this one because when I first saw the description of it and listened to it. Being honest, you know what came to mind is that boy Eminem, Marshall Mathers. He did that one album where it was all about serial killers, and he kind of took on the mindset of, it was his relapse album, is what he called it, and he's
Huh.
got this tune like 3 a.m. and all that, and you know. And so, anyway, where I'm going with that, y'all, is Mike's got this tune. Here it is, the graphic for it called Killer. And I like what you got here. Go inside the mind of a killer for hire in this hard hitting song, which again is available on all your favorite streaming platforms. So I think before we listen to this one, Mike, we might want to, give people a little insight to what was your mindset when you wrote this one, bro?
Well, first of all, when I first started playing music, um, the the rock and roll lifestyle was, to be perfectly honest, was a huge part of the draw of it.
Right,
And also being such a nerdy kid, finally getting a girl or two was a big motivation too.
right.
And if you remember back in the 80s, well, towards the end of the 80s, early 90s, when that whole hair metal thing was happening, that was just,
Oh, yeah.
oh, so fucking awful. It was, it's,
Groups
it's
like
their, it's their
Rat.
fault
Yeah.
that grunge killed everything because that shit needed to be killed. Because there was all these hair metal bands out there, and all they ever sang about was sex.
Right, yeah,
And
yeah.
that was it. And then and until the record company,
Poison, talk dirty to me, and
yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, that type
until
of
the
stuff.
record company would force them to do a really sappy love ballad.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and so I love Iron Maiden, and
Right, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think Iron Maiden has done one love song ever in
Mhm,
50 something years of their career.
mhm.
And I was kind of thinking, okay, well, there's enough love songs in the world now. I want to tell stories.
Yeah,
Um, I no longer want to do this for the lifestyle. I
Right.
I have no desire to go out there and strut around a straight stage trying to get some pussy at 55 years old. That's
Right. And
fucking
you're
retarded.
married, so you don't want to do that, bro.
So what I but the drive is I really want to tell stories,
Right.
whether they're personal or just made up. And
Hmm.
this one is another just fun song. It's just a story.
Well, with
But
that being said, let's give it a
what's
listen.
more heavy metal than a story about a killer for hire?
Yeah, well, another thing before we play the clip, Dean, that came to my mind, Mike, was this is the kind of fucking song you might even get into a movie soundtrack of this type or some shit, because
That
you
would be
see
nice.
shit like this all the time, murder for hire and stuff. So, anyway, let's give it a listen. We'll talk about it some more. Go ahead, Dean, whenever you're ready.
And if you're a cover higher, there's just one thing you need to know. Stop the one right between your eyes. Pull the trigger and down you go. This will get done. The show will kill. Everybody's good, but I kill for the ground. See the killer in my eyes.
Hell yeah, bro. That's a jam. And again, for anybody listening, watching, you come across the recorded version, man, this tune is available on all your favorite streaming platforms. It's out there on YouTube. So if you want to go check out the whole thing and the whole thing of all the tunes we played from Mike here today, go check them out. So yeah, bro, that's the jam right there too, Mike. I love that
Well,
one.
That's the
well, this
longest. That's the longest running clip we have, and you took us right into the hook, which I was kind of itching to hear.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, are we gonna get? And that's probably exactly when we got out of it. Probably before, once they get to the hook, then it's like, oh, maybe it could throw
On
a
the
red
copyright
flag at
thing.
us.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. No,
but
well,
anyway,
just a little
I gotta,
I
teaser.
really wanted to hear the rest of the hook. So
Well,
anyway,
that's it. We just want to put a little teaser out there to get
yeah.
people to go and actually listen to the whole thing and download it there,
well,
Mike.
I
That's a
certainly
great
hope
job.
that somebody does.
Yeah.
But I got to give a shout out to the guy that played guitar on this one. The guitar player I was working with at the time, his name is Jorge. Jorge Febres. I never really learned how
Shout
to.
out Jorge. Hell yeah.
I've never really learned how to pronounce his last name properly. But Jorge was just an amazing guitar player, and the stuff he did on this track just thrills me to death. I love
Right,
the way
right.
that came out.
Yeah, well, I think it's awesome, bro. Well, Mike, we have definitely brought this thing almost, full circle here, man. And I just can't thank you enough for doing the deep dive interview with us, man, and sharing everything you did with us about your journey. I mean, I just feel like I know you a hell of a lot better than I did, and I've known you over 30 years, and in just a couple hours, man, I feel like I know you a lot better than I ever did before. And like I said earlier, bro, you truly, truly are an inspiration to guys like me, and I'm sure all of our listeners and viewers. And I just want to thank you again for sharing your story and your journey with us, bro.
Well, you're going to make me blush.
No, I appreciate it, man. I'm
Well,
serious.
I
Yeah.
want to
I
talk
do
Photoshop
appreciate
with
it.
you.
What's that?
I want to talk Photoshop with you. Whenever you can come back around again. But
Well,
Yeah.
if you want to talk Photoshop with me, you better block out some time because
yeah,
I
I can
used it
imagine.
every day for
I've been
Right.
using it
20
since
years.
1990, so I think I can hold my own with you.
Yeah,
A little
I
bit.
took
So
a test on the Adobe website one time to see what level
yeah,
expertise I was at, and I had surpassed anything that they had up
they,
there.
you're off the chart. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so
Of course, now
I
there's
still love Photoshop, um, and I
now they
love
got some
doing.
AI features in Photoshop now.
Those are
That's like
new. I haven't actually delved into them
yeah,
yet,
yeah.
um, but I'm looking forward to delving into them to see what's happening. And the AI thing with music
Mm-hmm.
and with
Mm-hmm.
art is a big deal right now.
Yep.
But like what I've experienced so far with the AI is it's not there yet. A lot of people are saying
Oh,
it's there,
it's getting there.
but it's not quite there. But I think there are some very useful tools that are AI based that can help greatly with creation of art, both visual and music. But they're tools. They're not. They
Yeah,
shouldn't be crutches.
yeah.
Um, that uh, like if AI were to write something for me, well, so far it hasn't been able to.
Oh,
If I
let's try.
Right.
but like if you go and you ask some AI programs, make me write me a song that sounds exactly like corn, it'll do exactly that, and it'll
Yeah.
be fairly convincing.
Yeah.
But if you want something original, it can't do it, not yet.
Yeah. It's going to be fascinating to see where it goes. We've used some AI even with this show. It's on the end of the spectrum, in my opinion, but we can load the show into an AI software and it automatically
Yeah.
generates
Vi-
reels for us.
Yeah.
Video editing is not
Yeah.
quite is you're right, it's not there yet. But
Yeah.
I've been just working with a new app in the Creative Cloud thing that I'm just typing in things for artwork,
Hmm.
and oh my god, you would not fucking believe
Yeah, I was just reading an
the
article
stuff
about it.
it's it's
I actually just
creating.
downloaded that. I've had the Creative Cloud since I had my internet business,
Yeah.
and when I signed up for the Creative Cloud, I got it locked in at this ridiculously low price forever. So
Yeah.
Wow.
I have every single professional program that Adobe makes,
Yeah. In the
and I
cloud.
just
Yeah.
pay a small monthly fee for it. Now it's like four times. It costs 4 or 5 times what I'm paying for it.
Wow.
So we're not letting that go. And now my wife has become a photographer, so
Mm.
she's like, no, oh hell no, we're not letting that go because we'll never get it at that price again. So
Right.
now I'm
I have
working
the
with
teacher's
Premiere.
version.
I'm working with Adobe Premiere for the video stuff. So I'm already, I'm feeling really fortunate that I've got at least pro level software, so that when my skill level gets good enough to produce professional results, I'm already on the right programs for that. I've got the
There
right
you go.
software.
Yeah.
I have
That's
no
kind of like,
doubt.
I'm sorry, go ahead,
No,
Dean.
go ahead. No, you're
Well, I
fine.
was going to say it kind of reminds me of something we chatted about a little bit earlier, Mike. Even with me using the music production and auto tune software, that Pro Tools is such a popular program that's used industry wide, and I'm using Logic Pro, which is pretty equivalent. I also had a lot of people tell me when I started off, yeah, no, Glenn, you're good with Logic Pro. It's much more user friendly for somebody starting off, and eventually you may want to transition into using Pro Tools, and then maybe even use them both side by side. So it's a
Uh,
process, it's a
you don't
journey.
need Pro Tools. You'd probably be better off with Reaper, honestly. Um,
Yeah, I've
I
heard
I'm
that too. Yeah.
I'm using Studio One.
Hmm.
I have a Presonus makes it, and I'm also using one of their interfaces in my rack. I have a large rack mount interface with like 18 or 24 XLR inputs on it.
Right.
Um,
Wow.
it's one of the big boys. But that's the software I use. And by the way, the guitars that you hear, there's not a guitar amp or a bass amp on any of these recordings. I
Right.
Back in the day, we always had these giant Marshall stacks with
Mm-hmm.
these beautiful tube heads. I have now sold every single amplifier I owned,
Yeah.
Put them in headphones, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's all plugins and amp simulators that live inside the DAW software for recording. And moreover, the guitars you're hearing, the plugins I'm using are fucking free.
Mm,
Yeah.
jeez.
Well, you know what, Mike, to interject, I got to mention this since you brought it up, man. One of those pictures we showed of you that I pulled off your social media, you got them huge fucking PV speakers, and it reminded me of those PVs I used to use. We were talking about them young and free dances. Dean, you remember them speakers? I stored them in your studio there for a while, man. And it's like, God damn, man, that was a pain in the ass hauling them
He
things
used to
around. But
borrow
That's why
my
mine are on
van.
wheels. Mine
yeah,
are all on wheels. But
Well,
yeah,
here's the funny thing.
people don't use
Um,
them anymore, really, though. You know.
well, when I play live shows, we're going to need them.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's funny, those PV speakers you see, those are sleepers. Kind of like a hot rod that's been loaded with a much more powerful engine than anyone
Right, right.
expects.
Yeah.
Um, I took out this PV speakers and put in JBL woofers and
Mm.
took them from 700 watts per to 1400 watts per
Wow, wow.
speaker.
Now that's rocking for anybody who doesn't know. That is rocking.
Not
Yeah.
that is not fucking around. That is in fact when I first did that modification on those speakers, I turned it up really loud just to see, okay, what kind of SPL sound pressure level can these things produce. It started
Right.
doing damage to the studio building. I had to
Yeah.
turn it down. It
Well,
started
bro, I get it. I
down.
used to rattle the windows at that fucking Young and Free thing, man. I had them were them PV 118 subs with the Black Widow woofers in them and the
That's exactly what
SP2
I'm
horns
using.
and mids. Holy shit,
Yeah,
man.
I'm using those exact subs, the
Yeah,
PV 118 subs. I
yeah.
love them,
Yep.
and
Well, Mike, I gotta say, bro, I mentioned it earlier. We really gotta have you back on the show because this will, in fact, be our longest episode in addition of the Dare Me podcast. But one thing that's beautiful about doing these podcasts, man, as opposed to being like on commercial radio when I was a younger man and shit, there's no time clock. We
you
don't
do
have to
whatever
hit a hard
you want.
commercial break or whatever, you know. And like I've said at the beginning, man, if we have somebody who comes across this show who's maybe going through like opiate withdrawals or dope sick and just looking to kill time because the clock moves at a snail's pace, man, we're giving them some entertainment here and some good content to help kill that time. And so, with all that said, bro,
Well, Glenn, it's more than that.
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
More than that, because when I'm writing this music, and I talk about how so many of these songs are what I call therapy music.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm,
with music, with entertainment, whether it's a song or a podcast or what have you, if somebody's going through a rough time, and obviously I've been through
yeah,
my share,
yeah,
um,
as you've shared with
you know,
us, yeah,
I remember I said I was sitting on the couch watching Judas Priest, and it
right,
woke something up in me,
yeah.
and I stopped contemplating suicide that day.
Bro, man. Mike, I don't know if you're aware, bro, but we did a whole edition of this program just on that topic. We called it Opiates and Suicide because I was quite open on that episode of how I felt like I wanted to die and made a half ass attempt at it one night when I was so fucked up, dope sick, drinking again. I was back on the bottle trying to get through the withdrawals and shit and mixing. And I shared about it, and we went into a deep dive. And Dean, if you remember, we even got flagged by YouTube for
Hmm.
that edition of the show just because the algorithms or spiders, whatever,
Didn't like the name.
picked up that we kept
Well, I hope I
calling
didn't
it.
fuck shit up.
Well, no, I was actually quite impressed, Mike, that they sent us a warning that they were pulling it down and that if we wanted to appeal it, we could. I appealed immediately and said, whoa, whoa, we're not promoting suicide. This whole show was about suicide prevention.
Prevention,
And
yeah.
within an hour, they put us back up and also took it a step further for us and posted something about if you're, struggling with suicidal
Yeah.
thoughts, call this number or whatever. So I was quite impressed with YouTube on that, man. They really impressed me.
Is it probably the one
That sounds
time you?
fantastic. But the
Yeah.
word prevention
Yeah,
is a critical part of the phrase.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, everybody has their struggles.
yep,
Um, we're all just human,
yeah,
and especially with the social media thing, you can look at social media and it looks like everybody's out there living their best life, and
yeah,
they're out
yeah.
there just fancy free and footloose and fancy free, as they say,
We all
and,
have
and
our
they're posting
struggles, yeah.
vacation videos and all this shit, but everybody's got their stuff, you know
Mm-hmm.
everybody's got their challenges, and most people I know that are at least people that are interesting enough to be worth talking to. They've been through some serious shit,
Yeah.
and when you've been through some serious shit, you've got some serious shit to talk about. But you've
Yeah.
also got some serious wisdom to share
Say
if
that.
you're lucky enough to live through it.
Say that, bro. Well, on that note, Mike, I mean, you do you, bro, but I would love it if you can stick around for the next part of the show. We're going to move through this stuff pretty quick, but we are going to touch on some of the opioid crisis in the news. I think we have three stories we want to just talk about briefly, and we can comment on them. A couple of current events and some shout outs, and then we're going to bring this on home. You going to be able to stick around with us on this?
Well, I'm afraid it is a little bit late for me,
Right
and
on, right on. No worries. That's what I thought I'd ask, man.
also, being a singer, at least
And
that's what I'm calling myself. Still, I haven't until some other professional singers start calling me a singer. I'm just saying I'm calling myself a singer. Um, but I have to be careful with how much of my voice I use, and
yes,
talking for a long period of time can really wear you out. And
yeah. Tell me about it.
I've just started writing and recording another new song already.
Oh,
Uh,
man. All the more reason we got to have you back on, bro. Once you get that out there, you know.
so I'm going to be trying to record that tomorrow, but I can feel my voice is already starting to fail a little bit from fatigue.
Yeah, yeah. Well, as I'm sure you've figured out, Mike, and as most of our viewers and listeners know that watch the show regularly, I'm rarely ever at a loss for words, and it's just so nice having somebody that I can interact with where we really didn't step on each other much, man. It was very conversational, and of course, Dean, you rock star behind the scenes, coordinating everything. Again, appreciate that. But we're gonna do that second part of the show after we say so long to Mike. So if you're, out there watch, I see we still got some viewers and listeners to the show. Stick with us, and we'll cover the news, some current events, and some shout outs. But in the meantime, Mike, just want to say thank you so much again, bro. We'll catch up and talk, maybe sometime this week, just a little follow up to the show. And we'll have the show posted on the Dare Me podcast YouTube channel. That'll be there till the end of fucking time. You
It's
know what
already
I
been
mean?
posted on Threads.
And it's already on. Oh,
I
look, Dean's
I
got
did
us on
that
Threads
tonight.
now too. How about that?
Got you
We're
on
on all the
Threads.
platforms. Yeah. So, man, I can't thank you enough again, Mike. Anything you want to add before we say so long to you, bro?
I just want to say thank you very much for having me on your show,
Oh,
and
my pleasure.
uh, to have anyone else appreciate the music that I'm making, to appreciate that art, that especially because some of that was dredged up from the bottom of my fucking soul. It
Yeah.
was gut wrenching stuff. Some of that to get out, and but in the end, they're just rock and roll songs. But it means something when other people get it.
Yeah.
When other people appreciate it, and to have a platform to maybe get it out to some more. And honestly, one of my greatest hopes is that one of these therapy songs, like I like to call them,
Right.
maybe somebody who's in some real trouble might
Right.
hear one of these and relate to it,
Right on.
maybe it'll change their mind, and they can turn shit around, and not do something, not engage in self-harm, but
Yes.
engage in reinventing themselves, and starting something new and something positive.
Well,
And this show is a great platform
thank
for
you.
positivity, and
Yes.
for breaking out of the demons that haunt us,
Yeah.
and the bullshit that follows us around. And I would love to come back. I'd be happy to come back and talk
Great.
more about music, and all these other experiences, among other things that we've discussed.
Yes.
So anytime you want to have me back, you just let me know, and I'll make time in my schedule for you.
You bet, Mike. And thank you again for being with us, bro. We are both on the same page in terms of everything you just said, man. Like is included in the intro to our show. If we can help even one person, man,
Yeah,
to, like you said, challenge them demons, man, and stay alive even one day longer, then it's all worth it, bro. So thank you again for being with us. I know you got other obligations, so go do you, bro. And then hopefully you can come back and watch the whole show later and
I
catch up
intend
with
to.
us on the news and all we're about to go into, man. But we'll talk again soon, Mike. Thank you, bro.
And Dean, it was very nice to meet you. You were doing a great job, man. I had a
Yeah.
great time.
Hell yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you
sir.
very much. Good night, guys.
All right,
Good night.
peace, Mike. All right, well, there we go, everyone. Mike Woods from Cult of the Storm. How fucking cool was that, man? That was so much fun talking with Mike and just hearing his story, which is so inspiring, and then getting to play some clips from his music and just hearing the story behind the songs and what they mean to him and all that stuff, man. Talk about taking a deep dive. We definitely took a deep dive into the journey of Mike Woods and his project Cult of the Storm, and his music. So once again, thank you to Mike, and we will try to have Mike back on the show a little bit down the road. So anyway, for now. It is time once again to jump into the news, and it is a breaking news time. There's our little news teaser that we've used on previous shows. So
Need some music for that one, I guess.
yeah, we gotta come up with some sound. So I know, like I said, man, this is gonna be the longest episode of the Dare Me
Yeah.
podcast we've done. But hey, man, it is what it is. Like we said, that we just had such an engaging conversation with Mike, and I didn't want to cut that short, man. He was rocking. So anyway, we're gonna move quickly through the news and some current events and shout outs. I won't elaborate on this stuff as much as I ordinarily do because we are running long, but I do want to talk about this stuff. So let's go into the first story. As I've mentioned on this program many, 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 many times during the course of each week, we do keep our fingers on the pulse of what's going on in the news when it comes to the opioid crisis. And this story caught our eye here in California, where I'm at, y'all. A 21-year-old fentanyl dealer and it says here believed to be, but this confirmed now, became the very first person convicted of murder in California. He sold fentanyl, and these are them fake pills right here, y'all, to a 15-year-old girl who died. And yeah, you can see, man, they're pressing these fucking pills in the kitchen sink, making them look like Skittles and shit. And you can see that story is dated just from yesterday, man, Saturday, July 8th. So talk about current. But for any of y'all that might be dealing that shit, man, just a heads up. You fucking flip some of them pills and it kills somebody, you're looking at murder conviction. One more good reason to get clean if you're caught up in that madness. Here's another story over in San Francisco, where I'm going to be next weekend, by the way, y'all. We're going to take the Dare Me podcast on the road again, and we'll be doing the Dare Me San Francisco version. But anyway, we've talked about this story on the podcast several times, that they're doing a crackdown in what they call the TL district in San Francisco, the Tenderloin district, where the fentanyl crisis and the opioid epidemic is just so out of control. And they've been cracking down and making progress. And we don't get into politics here, y'all. This is not a political show. The governor of the state is who he is, whether you like him or hate him. We don't give an opinion on all this stuff. The governor did decide, because they are making progress, to double down on the number of state police over in there in the San Fran area. Cracking down on this thing. And, as we've said on the podcast, we're hoping that this crackdown, as they're calling it, truly makes a difference, and that it's not just stepping on an ant pile and them all running to another area, but they are doing something, trying to clean up, all this, what they call open air drug dealing and drug use going on. And, what's one of the most historic cities in the country, such a rich, rich history in San Francisco. Beautiful city. It's heartbreaking what's been going on there.
It's not a far stretch because the Tenderloin District,
What's that now,
um,
Dean?
you called it the Tenderloin District?
Yeah, they call it the Tenderloin District in San Francisco. And the story is the reason they call it the Tenderloin is because it's supposed to be that soft underbelly of the downtown area where all the shit goes on, you know? And
Well,
it's just a
there's an
name that they
actual,
give it.
more actual. Here's why do they call it? I googled this, so it must be gospel. 1876, a New York and a bribe-loving police captain named Alexander Kleber Williams, whose encouragement of police corruption contributed to a neighborhood filled with vice.
Yeah,
Cops
yeah.
taking bribes could afford Tenderloin, a better cut of meat, which is
Yeah,
why they
yeah.
called it the Tenderloin District. So
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
and you know what? It's had this long history of being kind of a high crime area
Yeah.
in the Tenderloin district, but I guess the way it is now, it's just like never been that bad. But anyway, we'll keep our eyes on what's happening over there, y'all, and I will be doing some reporting. Glenn Victor's going to put on his old reporter hat from back in my news reporter days, and we're going to bring you some footage on the show next week
Get
from
your
the
GoPro on. There
Tenderloin
you go.
District. I will be there next week and on next week's edition of the podcast. What's that, team? What did you say?
I said, get your GoPro on and
Yeah,
go get
yeah,
us
we
a
talked
story.
about that. Yeah, I got a couple buddies like, damn, bro, you better be careful over there. I'm like, motherfucker, I'm from Detroit, man. Those fucking Tenderloin don't scare me, you know. But hey, you got to mind your p's and q's in any big city you go to. And I just thought it'd be interesting since I'm going to be over there for a couple things we're going to talk about here in a minute to go pay a visit. We'll have some more on that next week, y'all. So moving on. Let's go all the way across the country to the state of Michigan, where the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, is hosting this roundtable up in Traverse City to decide what the state of Michigan is going to do with all that money that we've talked about on this show, the opioid settlements that all the different states around the country have reached with Big Pharma and the different pharmacies like Walgreens and CVS for their part in this whole opioid epidemic and crisis. And I want to show this next picture. Like I said, I like to name drop on this show. I actually met Dana last summer. There, her and I are at a fundraiser in Detroit for this place I've mentioned on the show many times, the East Side Alano Club. And this was a fundraiser for that club that hosts different 12-step meetings, NAAA, and, they have a lot of cool stuff and events going on. It's a place where people hang out, too, and socialize that are in the program. And, she was there, and so I met her and talked to her. She was the keynote speaker. And I just want to say again, y'all, this is not a political show. Certainly I have my opinions. I think if you really follow me, you probably figured out I'm more of an independent than anything else. I don't even necessarily believe that there's really a fully Republican or Democratic party in this country anymore. That's just my opinion. And again, I don't mean to get into politics, whether you're conservative, liberal, more in between, independent like me. I posted this pic back last summer, and an old friend of mine who I love and admire made what I thought was kind of a snarky comment, like, "Oh, she's a real politician," and I just replied like, "Yeah, but aren't they all, bro? Aren't they all? I just thought it was admirable that she came and spoke." That she was going to be a watchdog agency and a person, a watchdog person, to keep an eye on how this money is spent. Because when you're talking about millions and even billions of dollars, we all know goddamn well there's going to be some shit in the game, and some of that fucking money is going to end up where it don't belong. And so I just thought, hey, man, it's kind of cool that she's going to keep an eye on this and hopefully be the watchdog to make sure that money is invested, is a better way to say it, in the right places to help combat and mitigate, if you will, that whole opioid epidemic. So anyway, I got a chance to meet her, and she actually, quite frankly, was a very nice person. So anyway, all politics aside, whether you like her, hate her, indifferent, or whatever, she was very nice to me, and that I respect. So anyway, we'll see what happens with all the money, not just in the state of Michigan, but around the country. And so here's another story I thought we'd talk about. Whoops, he lost that one. There we go. This is all the way up again on the other side of the country, up in the Northeast there in New York, New York. The city's so nice they named it twice. They now have, and this is actually pretty common around the country and other parts of the world even, they now have Narcan in vending machines. And if you don't know what Narcan is, it is the antidote for opioid overdoses. It's like a nasal spray that can reverse the effects of an opioid overdose and literally bring someone back to life. And they're saying in New York, their first Narcan vending machine is working. And you can see this is a fairly recent story, y'all. It's dated July 5th. And the bizarre story with this one, I was telling Dean and Mike earlier, apparently some dude like OD'd on opioids and literally was knotted out right next to this machine. And somebody bought, a Narcan, out of it and revived the guy right on the spot, right next to the fucking opioid or beg your pardon, Narcan vending machine. How crazy is that? Fucking bizarre. So, anyways, man, yeah, Narcan available now in vending machines. Not just in New York, but other places around the country, and it's becoming more common. Is welcome to the modern society, man. They're becoming like fire extinguishers, where they're available any place you go out in public. So, moving on, here's another one that I thought was interesting, and this kind of freaked me out, man. Madonna. Yeah, that Madonna definitely caught my attention because for those who don't know, she's a Detroit girl, man. She grew up in a place called Rochester Hills, which is, suburb of Detroit. Is basically like growing up in Detroit City. And there's some reports out there, speaking of Narcan, that she allegedly was revived with Narcan recently. And there's a little bit more to this story as well. If you've been following the news, she had to postpone her tour because of some health challenges. And this is from Forbes magazine, y'all. Not that I'm giving you opinion on Forbes, but they are considered to be a pretty credible media outlet. And it says here the report alleges that Narcan revived Madonna from septic shock. And I'm thinking to myself, what the fuck? Come on, man. And so I read a little further into it, and supposedly and apparently, Narcan, or naloxone, as is the clinical name for it, I guess, can be used with potentially some positive effects for treating, septic shock. But it just had me scratching my head, bro. It reminded me of when Prince died, because if you know his story, he did a show in Atlanta not even a week before he died, and he was flying back to Minneapolis, and they had an emergency landing, and they say he was brought back to life by being Narcaned because of an opiate overdose. And so all I'm saying, y'all, is this was in the news. Thought I'd put it out there. Definitely got my attention. I'm not saying Madonna's an opiate addict. I'm not saying she is, and I don't fucking know. And this is an alleged, thing that happened. It's out there, though, man, and it just goes to show this fucking thing is just so bizarre, man. What's going on with the opioid epidemic, Narcan, all that kind of shit. And let's just hope, for the sake of Madonna, that she ain't hooked on them fucking opiates and that she recovers soon, because I will go see Madonna. I saw her as a younger man long time ago for the Who's That Girl tour back when I lived in Detroit still, because like I said, she's a hometown girl, man, Detroit City. And man, I'll definitely go see her because, let's face it, she's getting up there, man. I don't think she's going to be doing any world tours much longer. But, fuck, you never know. Look at the Stones. Some guys are pushing 80, and who's to say if they can do it, fucking, if any female singer would do it, fucking Madonna would do it, But I'm going to try to go see her on this tour, and hopefully she's doing okay. So, anyway, just thought I'd put that out there, y'all. Let's go on to this next story. I talked about I'm going to be in San Francisco next weekend, and this is one of the main reasons I'm going. Going to see this young artist who I just love. Her name is Claire Rosencrantz. And if you follow me on social media, you know that I've actually already seen her a couple times. I saw her last summer in Orlando, saw her again in Detroit at Masonic Temple. And if you don't know Claire, her story is so freaking cool. She makes all her music with her dad, who is close to my age. And Claire's just a young girl. She's like 20 years old, but she's been making music since she was a kid. There's like pictures and videos out there of her as a little girl sitting on her dad's lap at the piano and them making music together. And she has this concert coming up in San Francisco next Friday, I'm going to, that was actually postponed a couple of times. She was dealing with some health challenges herself, and I was supposed to go see her in March and then again in April, and then they bumped the show to July. And she's doing much better now. And what's kind of cool is she's actually releasing a new album on the day that I'm going to see her. And I got a ticket to this private listening party and meet and greet where I'm going to get to meet her and their dad. And I'm sure she'll be doing some of her new music at this listening party. So I'm so fucking excited about that, man. I'm going over there Friday for that. And this is something I just pulled about Claire off of Wikipedia. If you're interested, highly encourage you to go check out her music. It's so fucking cool, y'all. And yeah, she's a young girl, but like I said, she makes all this music with her dad. So it's music really that anybody might enjoy. And there she is, man. What a pretty girl, I mean, we were just talking about Madonna. I'm thinking to myself, like, God, here's a modern day Madonna. Madonna's getting up there, but Claire, man, she's, like I said, I think about 20 years old, such a beautiful girl. And this is another picture of her kind of with that little skater boy, motif, if you will. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Avril Lavigne when she was that age and younger. So just thought I'd show a few pictures of Claire. And there's her pops, Ragnar Rosencrantz. And like I said, I get to meet him on Friday as well. And he plays bass in the band that she has. So anyway, just want to talk about that a little bit, y'all. And she won this award for a gold single called Backyard Boy. And that's kind of the one that put her on the map. That went viral on TikTok, and there you can see all of her crew and everything. She's got a really good crew behind her. And I thought that was a cool picture to show. So anyway, looking forward to that. Then the next night, I'm going to see these guys again, Dead and Company, or Grateful Dead, if you will. Of course, they changed their name when Jerry Garcia passed away, but there's Bob Wiseman in the middle there, and now on the end here where I got the pointer, that's John Mayer, who's been playing with them and touring with them, playing guitar. I actually saw them in Detroit at a place called Pine Knob last summer. And it was very cool. First time I ever went to a Dead show, and man, it was everything you would think it would be. There were definitely people there tripping, but everybody was just vibing, having a real good time. And man, during the intermission, I got a hell of an education about people who follow the Dead that call themselves the Wharf Rats, and they're people who live clean and sober, but love following the group around. And they actually have a recovery meeting. It's not like NA or AA or anything like that. It's similar to those types of meetings, but it's non-denominational, if you will. And it's like a meeting that's similar to an NA or AA meeting, but it's all recovery people. And so I'll be looking for that Wharf Rats meeting. I guess they have yellow balloons they fly in the sky during intermission. You just look for the balloons and you meet up with like minded people. And so, anyway, that's going to be next Saturday. So, like I said, I'll be in San Fran Friday for the Claire show and Saturday for the Dead show. And during the day, Saturday, I'm going to try to take that trip down to downtown San Fran, get some footage for next week's show and all. And I just thought I'd show that, y'all. Okay, let's shift gears into some current events coming up. I got good news, y'all. We'll also be going live in a few weeks from Miami, Florida. We really are taking this show on the road, man. We're going to do some shit from San Fran, and then we're going to do some shit from Miami. I'm going to the South Florida Regional Convention of Narcotics Anonymous that'll be take place in Bonita Springs, which is right in the Fort Myers area. And, I always like to say, man, whenever I talk about NA or AA or any of them, I ain't no fucking representative. Y'all ain't trying to break no traditions of the programs or whatever. I'm just another guy trying to stay clean. But this is all common knowledge information that anybody can acquire just going online or on the internet. And just thought we'd show this information. And if any of y'all looking for a great NA convention to go to, it is an awesome one. This will be August 11th through 13th. And all kinds of speaker meetings, workshops. They have a banquet, a clean time countdown, all the things, dances, comedian shows, and you can see it's at a beautiful location. So that one's coming up in a couple of weeks, and there's another logo that they put together for it. The theme this year is called The Gifts of Recovery. Then later in the fall, here's another one thought we'd talk about, y'all, right here in California. I'll be headed down south to the Anaheim area in October 27th through 29th. Is Southern California Regional Convention of Narcotics Anonymous. This will be the 44th one, y'all. And the theme for it this year is right there. And you can see they put together this cool logo for it and stuff, and it'll be in Anaheim. So anyway, if you're looking for one to do in October, come on out to California, y'all. And then we want to talk about this today. This is something I also pulled off the internet today in memory of the founder of Narcotics Anonymous, Jimmy Kinnon. Kind of on a sad note, he passed away on this date back in 1985. So RIP to Jimmy Kinnon. And here's something else we pulled off the internet. He passed away way back in 1985. For those of y'all who don't know, NA was founded in 1953 based on the 12 steps of AA, which was founded in 1935. Kind of interesting little flip of the dates there. But he passed away from lung cancer back in July of 85, man. That's back when everybody smoked them goddamn cigarettes, and that's what took him out. And this is probably the most popular picture of Jimmy that I've seen. For those of y'all that know me, I've been around the program for fucking over 35 years, and I've seen this picture of Jimmy more than any other, so thought I'd show that. And then I thought this was kind of cool. Somebody posted this on the Jimmy K Facebook page, and this is an excerpt from one of his speeches. There's a lot of speeches from him out there on YouTube that you can still hear. It's kind of cool, where he says, "We are not giving up. We are sitting here for the ones coming after us, sitting here for the addicts not even born yet. We must keep these doors open." And so that's kind of the whole idea in, the NAAA fucking A meeting you pick, is, man, we often say, don't fuck up, man. Lives are at stake, and so it is about keeping the doors open once you get your life back on track and, keep coming back to help the people that are coming in for the first time. So anyway, RIP to Jimmy K. Had to do a little shout out to him. And speaking of shout-outs, if you watched our show a few weeks ago, we had that girl Melissa on the show, Melissa Dawn. Oh, my God, she was so cool, had such a great message. And she is doing this self-empowerment workshop. And if you remember, she talked about, how she has become a life coach, and she's working with all these women on self-empowerment. She's hosting a workshop in Michigan on July 19th. So that'll be in Plymouth, or on Plymouth, beg your pardon, in Ann Arbor. But there's the information, and her Instagram is, I thought it was on there, but anyhow, if you want more information on this, you can always, find out through this information we're showing on here right now. I'm trying to remember what the fuck. Oh, I know what her Insta is. Empower. Oh, Jesus Christ, I can't remember it. But anyways, if you're in Michigan, this is something that I think you may be very interested in attending. And again, this is for the ladies. So shout out to Melissa. And by the way, we had several people after we had her on the show ask if we could have her back to tell her whole story. And I reached out to her about that, and she said, heck yeah, So we will have her back on the show again down the road. And Melissa, I apologize. I thought we had your Insta listed on there, but it must have got cropped out of the picture. But nonetheless, if anybody's interested in information about that, DM me on my social media. I'll get it to you. Okay, this one, man, I had to do this. I talked to my friend. Well, we messaged each other today. Cece from Detroit, and look how beautiful she is, man. Such a sweetheart, and I just wanted to make sure with her it was okay for me to talk about this, and she said, "Oh, absolutely, Glenn, don't worry about it." And so I met Cece when I first started getting clean again a couple of years ago at the Eastside Alano Club in Detroit, and she's like a little sister, to me and a lot of us from over there, and just such a sweetheart. And look how pretty and beautiful she is, y'all. Well, she had a horrible accident, and look at this, y'all. Like I said, I wanted to clear it with her that it was okay for me to show this. And just yesterday, man, she's driving down I-75 in Detroit, and a fucking light pole from the other side of the freeway fell on the median, hit her car, and it like hit the back seat of the car. And this is what happened to her, but that ain't even the worst of it. Let's go on to this next one. This was posted by her mom, and she posted this. Look at this. To summarize, a semi truck on southbound 75, the other side of the freeway Cece was on, hit the median, and that sent cement debris in the pole over the median into her car, which was northbound. And the hospital people are saying that if she would have been even 1 second sooner, that it very well could have killed her because the pole landed in the back seat. If she would have been 1 second sooner, it would have hit the front. And here is her car obviously on the left, but if you look close, this is something somebody driving by took a picture and posted. On the left, you can see the fucking pole that fell over the median, and in the middle, look at all the debris, the concrete debris in the pole that fell over from the semi hitting it. And poor Cece's just driving down the freeway, and that fucking pole hit the back of her car. Y'all just think if, her mom said, if she'd have been 1 second sooner or whatever, it would have hit her in the front, and she probably wouldn't be here today. And look at this, man. Holy camole. So, yeah, that was her in the EMS unit and all. But I couldn't leave y'all with that image of her, so we had to go back to this one. She did let me know she's doing okay, some bumps and bruises and scratches, and she's okay. And, I just want to say, and Cece, I know you'll probably see this, in a previous life, Dean, you happen to know this about me. In my working life and career, I worked for a company for 25 years that had a real focus on traffic safety. It's something I know a lot about. And on average, about 35,000 people die in the United States alone every year in car crashes. So anytime you can walk away from a car crash, even considering what happened with you, sweetheart, man, you are doing good, and that certainly was no fault of your own. And thank God, man, that you're going to be okay and you're still here with us. Love you to death, girl. Peace. And just thought I'd share that with everyone. And as I messaged Cece, I thought I'd share this with y'all just to remind us all to enjoy the moments, man, because they can fucking end like that. Here, this poor girl's just driving down the freeway, minding her own business, doing her thing, and all of a sudden, right out of the blue, a fucking pole comes over the median and smashes into her car. Thank God she's all right. So, peace to you, Cece. Hope to see you when I come visit by the end of the summer. All right, y'all. On another note, I thought we'd try to end the show on a more upbeat note, with a few funny memes, and then we're going to wrap it up in just a couple minutes here. I follow these all week long on social media, and whenever I see one that catches my attention, man, I capture it to show. And I thought this was a good segue from the story we just did with Cece. Cheers to low maintenance friends, the ones who understand life gets busy, but when we see each other, there's nothing but love. Kind of reminds me of my kids, for God's sakes. I don't hear from them half as much as I wish I did, or even see them as much as I'd like to. But hey, I get it, man. Everybody's busy. Fuck, I'm busy with my life. But whenever we do get to talk or get together, it is all love. And I try to be low maintenance even to my kids. I tell them all the time, I don't ever want to be a fucking burden to you, but just know I'm here, man. If you ever fucking need me, I'll drop anything and be there for you. And that's kind of how I felt with Cece. We don't talk really much because I'm out here in Cali now. She's back in Detroit, but we do follow each other on social media. And man, it's like the meme says here, nothing but love. So hey, Cece, hope you're doing good. Just thought I'd share that. And then on another humorous note, I thought this was funny as hell because it's been hot as hell out here, y'all. It's been
Yeah.
up in the hundreds. And so, being that this show is about drugs and addiction and stuff, some of y'all might not like this kind of humor, but lighten up, man. Somebody posted this. It's so goddamn hot out there, the crackheads are putting the copper back in the AC units. So, anybody who knows, sometimes druggies, man, will start scrapping and try to steal the copper out of AC units. And so this meme says, hey, it's so hot they're putting them back. So, and then being that it was just the 4th of July and everything, I thought this was a funny one. If you think the fireworks are loud, try opening one of these late at night when you're in the kitchen and you're trying to sneak a snack and be real quiet and not wake anybody else up. They use these fucking plastic containers that are impossible to be quiet with. So if you get that one, you already know. And so that caught my attention, and I thought it was real funny. Thought we'd show that. And then finally, here's our last one. Then we're going to wrap up the show, y'all. I'm not so sure about an inner child, but I certainly have an inner idiot that surfaces every now and then. I couldn't resist showing that one because isn't it true? What is the old saying? I'm paraphrasing here, but self deprecation is probably the best type of humor that you can have. And so, anyway, with all that said, Dean, I know I held you hostage on this show longer today than we ever have. Oh my God, I just looked at the timer. We've
Yep.
been going for 3 hours and 15 fucking minutes, over 3 hour and 15 minutes, not to mention the prep time for the show. And for those of y'all that are watching, y'all, we come on an hour before we go live just to do mic checks, camera checks, light checks, make sure everything's working. So there's a lot of work goes into this show. And Dean, I just want to say thank you again, bro. I say it all the time, but you truly are a rock star. And man, we definitely gonna pull some reels from this show. There's a lot of content in this show that we can pull from. So let me go ahead and wrap it up with. As the closer, hey everyone, again, if you're a person struggling with addiction, whether it's opioid addiction or any other drug, booze, you name it, we hope that we provided you with some content that maybe will help you, inspire you, motivate you to get your life back on track and get clean. If you're going through opiate withdrawals or trying to kick any type of drug, I get it, man. I've been there, I've done that, and if I can get clean, anybody can. I've told my story on this show in previous episodes, and if you're trying to kill time while you're kicking, while that clock is ticking at a snail's pace, go to the Dare Me Podcast YouTube channel, click on that video tab, and all of our episodes are there. It'll help kill some time for you with inspirational content with like minded people who are, living clean and drug free now, just like you can too. So, with all that said, y'all, we hope you enjoyed today's show. If you stuck with us the whole time, or you come back and maybe watch bits and pieces here and there, or what have you, we really do hope you enjoyed the show. We want to say thank you again to Mike Woods, who was an awesome guest today. Really do hope to have Mike back on the show down the road. So, anyway, once again, if you're going through it, hang tough, y'all, like we like to say on this show. If you're going through hell, keep fucking going. You'll come out the other side of it, y'all. Keep fighting the good fight, and we hope to see you again next time on the Dare Me podcast. Dean, anything you want to add before we wrap up, bro?
Well, it was a fun night. It was a fun night. I enjoyed hearing him. He had a lot to say.
Yeah, didn't he? He had a hell of a story. Yeah.
And I just thought he would. And there's my I was waiting for and that's my story, but he just kept going with more tragedy. I'm like,
we
wow.
definitely did a deep dive, and it's so inspirational. My son often says, man, Dad, the comeback is always better than the drop back, or I'm paraphrasing however, that story goes. But man, talk about a comeback story with Mike. So I get what you're saying, Dean.
I'll say one thing. Over the last few weeks, I've been, the thought in my head, and you've heard this before, that which does not kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
That's not true. In our environment here, and with this podcast, that which does not kill you just hasn't killed you yet.
That's a good way to put it, man.
Because that's a whole different thing when you say, because it means you can tempt fate. It means you can tempt fate, and we were talking about opioids. Tempting fate. I mean, if Madonna tempted fate, or Prince, or any of the other many people that tempted fate
Petty,
one
Pete,
too many
all
times,
them.
That which does not kill you hasn't killed you yet.
Yes. Isn't that true? I believe I totally get what you're saying, bro. I believe there's truth to both of them, that it certainly can make you stronger, but there are yets, It's like, even when we talk about, drug addiction and recovery, I remember talking to my bro about it and saying, yeah, man, I never thought in a million years I'd fucking snort heroin. And he said, yeah, man, every time you go out, you check another one off the list that you said you'd never do. And then he said to me, and you know what'd be next, bro? And I'm like, oh, hell no, I ain't never touching no needles, man. And he said, you need to put a fucking yet at the end of that. And just like you just said, Dean, yet, and God forbid I ever had a relapse, man. God, I hope I never have to experience that yet, because I definitely don't want to go there, bro. So I get what you're saying, man. Appreciate that.
The strength that you think you're getting, again, just keep putting the word yet after everything you say. Yet.
Yes, exactly.
And I hear people, my old man smoked till he was 80 years old.
Yeah, that ain't the norm.
I am, and I'm like, yet.
Yeah,
Yet.
Boy,
and you want to tempt fate? I've stepped out into traffic in New York City 1,000 times without looking. Hadn't killed me yet.
Yeah, that's a good, I think a good positive message to bring the show home on, Dean, because you know what? We do have a lot of listeners and followers that aren't kicking anymore. They're living clean. And as we've said on this show before, there's that old saying around the rooms, any old asshole can get clean, go in a detox, go in a rehab, go in a treatment center, kick in your basement, whatever the fuck you got to do. But once you get that dope out of your system, what are you going to do to stay clean? And one of the things that we talk about is exactly what you just alluded to. There's a lot of yets out there. You pick that shit back up again, and maybe it didn't kill you the first time, but not yet, So it's a good deterrent.
Yep. So
yeah. Well, hey, Dean, once again, thank you, bro. Appreciate you, man. Like I said, everyone, if you're still with us, next week we'll be doing the show. I may very well be back in Sacramento in time to go live here in the studio Sunday. If that be the case, we absolutely will still have all the footage from the visit to San Francisco, just kind of like we did when we went to Lake Tahoe and Vegas and that whole kind of thing. So, we'll see how it flushes out, but it will be the San Francisco version of the Dare Me podcast next week. So with all that said, thanks again, Dean. Thanks again to Mike Woods for joining us today, and hope y'all have a great week. We'll see you next time on the Dare Me podcast.
Have a good night, everyone.